The Oath of Thorns, a dark romance novel. Prologue. The List. Griffith Sutton. 12 names. I've written them in black ink on a sheet of paper that cost nothing, inside an office that cost everything. And the contrast should bother me more than it does. But it's 3 a.m, and I stopped caring about aesthetics around the time the 7th name made the list. I stare at the page. The handwriting is steady, controlled, each letter precise, almost mechanical, because my hands don't shake anymore. They used to. Back when betrayal was still a surprise. Back when it could still reach me in the place where a man is supposed to feel things like shock, like grief, like the dull implosion of someone you trusted deciding you were worth less than whatever they were offered. That place is quiet now. Not dead, not yet, just muted, like a room where someone has stuffed cloth into every crack, sealed every window, until the air goes thick and still and nothing gets in. Nothing gets out, either. I pick up the pen and draw a single line through the 12th name. Neil Kavanagh. Head of Intelligence. 14 years. I hired him out of a windowless government office in Langley when he was 30, and hungry and brilliant. Gave him a corner office, a salary that let his wife quit nursing, a purpose that didn't involve lying to congressional committees. 14 years. 48 hours ago, he sold our client database to a competitor, not the public-facing directory, the real one. Names, operational details, threat assessments. The kind of information that, in the wrong hands, gets people killed. I found out because Rowan found out, because Rowan finds out everything, because that's why I pay him enough to buy a small country and still sleep with his eyes open. Neil didn't deny it. That's the part that stays with me, sitting here at 3 a.m. with a glass of whiskey I haven't touched. He didn't deny it. Didn't try to explain. Didn't beg or bargain or produce some elaborate justification about a sick child or a gambling debt or a moment of weakness. He just looked at me, across the same conference table where we'd planned operations, shared meals, once spent an entire night mapping a threat network that saved a diplomat's family, and said, "I don't know why I did it." 5 words. As if that was enough. As if the absence of a reason was somehow worse than any reason he could have given, because at least a reason would be something I could fight. Something I could understand. I don't know why I did it. Neither do I, Neil. Neither do I. I set down the pen and leaned back in my chair, letting the leather creak beneath my weight. The office is dark except for the desk lamp, a single cone of amber light that turns the mahogany surface into something warm and deceptive, like the room is pretending to be a place where a man could feel safe. It's not. No room is, anymore. I pick up the glass, swirl the whiskey, set it down again without drinking. 12 names. 12 people who had no reason to betray me and did it anyway. Not over months or years, the way loyalty erodes naturally, the way people drift or grow resentful or simply decide they deserve more. This was different. This was sudden. Violent. Like watching someone sleepwalk off a cliff. The person you knew was there one moment and gone the next, replaced by something empty-eyed and purposeful and utterly unfamiliar. I've cataloged them, because that's what I do. I analyze, I categorize, I reduce human behavior to patterns and probabilities until the chaos starts to make sense. It's what made me good at this job. It's what built Sutton Meridian from a one-man operation in a rented office above a Southie bar into the largest private intelligence firm on the eastern seaboard. It's also what's destroying me, because I've run the analysis 100 times, and the pattern doesn't make sense. The first was Lenora Walsh, Chief Financial Officer. 8 years. She wired $2.3 million from our operating accounts to an offshore entity in Cyprus. No prior financial distress. No signs of coercion. She'd just bought a house in Newton with her partner, for God's sake. They'd adopted a dog. The second was Marcus Hale, Senior Analyst. 6 years. Leaked classified threat assessments to a journalist who published them in a series that nearly cost us 3 federal contracts. Marcus, who once told me over beers that this company was the only real family he'd ever had. The third was Dominic Trask, Field operations, 11 years. Former Army Ranger. The kind of man who would walk into a burning building for a stranger and not think twice. He disappeared one Tuesday with a hard drive containing the personal security protocols for 12 Fortune 500 executives. We found the drive 3 days later, wiped clean, in a hotel room in Newark. We never found Dominic. I could keep going. I could recite every name, every detail, every precise mechanism of each betrayal, because I have memorized them the way a surgeon memorizes anatomy, clinically, completely, as if knowing the structure of the wound will help me close it. It hasn't. The list sits under the lamp like an accusation, against them, against me, against whatever invisible force has turned my world into a machine designed to confirm the one thing I've always feared. That trust is a con. That loyalty is a temporary condition. That everyone, given the right pressure or the right price, will eventually choose themselves over you, and the ones who seem most reliable, most steadfast, most good, those are just the ones who haven't been tested yet. I used to believe differently. My father would have hated what I've become. Patrick Sutton, longshoreman, union man, the kind of Irish-American Southie lifer who judged a person by their handshake and their willingness to show up when the work was ugly. He trusted people because he believed trust was the foundation of everything. Marriages, friendships, the docks. You gave a man your word, and you kept it. Simple. He died when I was 19. Heart attack on the pier. Dropped like someone had cut his strings. I was in my second year at BC, sitting in an economics lecture, when my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. Your father collapsed at work. He didn't make it. I'm sorry, son. The stranger on the phone had been sorry. Everyone had been sorry. I'd built an empire on the ruins of that grief, channeled every ounce of rage and loss into becoming someone who would never be caught off guard again. Someone who could see the threat before it materialized, map the danger before it arrived at the door. And now, 18 months into a slow-motion dismantling of everything I've built, I'm sitting in the dark with a list of names and the growing certainty that I've failed at the one thing I swore I'd never fail at. I didn't see it coming. Any of it. My phone vibrates on the desk. I glance at the screen. Rowan. You still awake? I don't respond. He knows the answer. Another buzz. The Voss paperwork is finalized. Ceremony is scheduled for Thursday. City Hall, 10 a.m. Her brother signed the supplemental agreement this afternoon. Right. The Voss arrangement. I'd almost forgotten. Which tells you something about the state of my mind, because I don't forget things. I especially don't forget that in 4 days, I'm marrying a woman I've never met. Eleonora Voss. 28. Old money. Beacon Hill. Charitable boards. The kind of name that gets engraved on library plaques and hospital wings. Except the money's gone. The father's dead, the shipping empire's bankrupt, and the younger brother owes $1.8 million to a private lending group that has been known to collect debts with methods that don't appear in any legal filing. The arrangement is simple. I marry her. The debts vanish. I absorb the remaining Voss shipping assets, the port contracts, the warehouse leases, the regulatory licenses that would take me 3 years to acquire independently. She gets a name, a roof, and the guarantee that her brother keeps all his fingers. 3 years, clean, contractual, no complications. Another buzz. Also, she asked about you. I pick up the phone. Asked what? Whether you were safe, her word. I stare at the message. Safe. The word is so absurd in the context of my life that I almost laugh. Almost. The sound dies somewhere in my chest, strangled by the same numbness that's been living there for months. Safe. I think of Neil Kavanagh, sitting across from me, his face blank, his eyes empty. I think of Lenora Walsh's partner, sobbing in the lobby when the FBI showed up. I think of Dominic Trask's mother, calling the office every week for 6 months, asking if we'd found her son. Safe. No, Eleonora Voss, I am not safe. But I am useful. And for a woman in your position, useful will have to be enough. Tell her I'll see her Thursday. I set the phone down and turned back to the list. 12 names. 12 fractures. 18 months of watching the people I trust turn into strangers, one by one. As if some invisible hand is reaching into their lives and flipping a switch I can't find. Tomorrow, there will be a 13th person in my orbit. A wife. The word tastes wrong in my mouth, like speaking a language I learned from a textbook and never practiced. My parents had a real marriage, the kind built on Sunday dinners and arguments about the heating bill, and my mother's habit of falling asleep on my father's shoulder during late-night television. She died when I was 12. Breast cancer. My father never remarried. Never even considered it. You only get one, Griff. He'd told me once, sitting on the porch of our triple-decker in Southie, beer in hand, watching the street the way he watched everything, with steady, patient attention. One person who makes you stupid enough to believe the world is good. You lose them, and you spend the rest of your life knowing what the world really is. He'd been right. Except I never found my one. And I've stopped believing the world is good. So what does that make a marriage between two people who are neither in love nor pretending to be? What do you call a wedding where the bride is buying her brother's safety and the groom is buying port access? You call it what it is. A transaction. I pull the list toward me one more time and study the names. There's a question I've been circling for months, one that won't let me rest, one that I've turned over in my mind so many times the edges have gone smooth and dangerous. Why them? Not just why these specific people. That's an intelligence question, and I'll solve it eventually. The harder question, the one that lives in the marrow. Why does everyone I trust become someone I can't? Is it me? Is there something in the architecture of my life, some flaw in the way I build loyalty, that guarantees its collapse? Am I selecting the wrong people, or am I the kind of man who poisons the ones he chooses? The thought is a knife. I let it cut. Because the alternative, that this is something being done to me, deliberately, systematically, by a force I haven't identified, is worse. That would mean I'm being hunted. That would mean the betrayals are weapons. That would mean someone out there has found a way to dismantle me without ever stepping into the room. And I don't know which possibility terrifies me more. The whiskey sits untouched. The lamp hums. Outside, Boston sleeps under a February sky that's the color of bruised iron, the harbor invisible beneath fog. In 4 days, a woman I've never spoken to will stand beside me in a courthouse and take my name. She'll move into the estate, eat at my table, appear at my side at events, where important people will shake her hand and call her Mrs. Sutton and assume this is real. It won't be real. It will be an arrangement, a contract, a controlled variable in a life that has become nothing but chaos. And I will watch her the way I watch everyone, carefully, clinically, with the cold, meticulous attention of a man who has learned that affection is just a precursor to loss. I will wait for the betrayal, because it will come. It always comes. She will be no different. I fold the list in half, then in half again, and slip it into the inner pocket of my jacket, next to my chest, where it rests like a second heartbeat. 12 names. Soon to be 13. I turn off the lamp. The darkness is a relief. Chapter 1. The Stranger in White. Eleonora Voss. The dress cost $11. I found it at a consignment shop on Charles Street, wedged between a moth-eaten fur coat and a bridesmaid's gown the color of infected salmon. Ivory silk, knee-length, simple, the kind of dress a woman wears when she wants to look like she tried without admitting she cared. I cared. I just couldn't afford to show it. I buttoned the collar in front of the bathroom mirror in my apartment on Beacon Hill, an apartment that still has my family's name on the lease, though it hasn't had my family's money behind it for 2 years. The radiator clanks. The faucet drips. The wallpaper in the hallway is peeling in, slow, dignified strips. The way everything in my life seems to be coming apart. Not all at once, but with the unhurried patience of decay. Outside, Boston is doing what Boston does in February, existing under a sky, the color of wet cement, the wind off the harbor sharp enough to make your eyes water, the kind of cold that doesn't just chill you but judges you for being out in it. I should be used to judgment by now. My phone sits on the bathroom counter, face down. I turned it over an hour ago because Callum won't stop texting, and every message is a variation of the same thing. You don't have to do this. Ellie, please. I'll figure something out. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He's been sorry for 8 months. Ever since the night he showed up at my door at 2 a.m, with a split lip, and the kind of terror in his eyes that I'd only ever seen in animals. He owed $1.8 million to people whose names he wouldn't say, for reasons he couldn't explain, and the repayment timeline was measured in weeks, not months. They said they'd take my hands, Ellie, my actual hands. I'd held him while he shook, made him tea he couldn't drink, called the one lawyer we could still afford who told us what I already knew. There was no legal solution. There was no money, there was no way out. There was only this. A man I'd never met, a contract I'd read 17 times, a ceremony that would take less time than a dentist appointment and would cost me 3 years of my life. I smooth the dress over my hips and study myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me is composed, poised, chin level, shoulders square, the posture of someone who was taught before she could walk that a Voss never slouches, never trembles, never lets anyone see the architecture of her collapse. My mother's training, the one inheritance she left me that wasn't worthless. I look fine. I look like someone going to a Wednesday morning meeting, not her own wedding. Perfect. My fingers find the locket at my throat, a reflex so ingrained I don't notice I'm doing it anymore. The gold is warm from my skin, the chain thin and delicate, the kind of thing that looks like costume jewelry unless you know what you're looking at. My father gave it to me 3 weeks before he died. Pressed it into my palm at the hospital, his fingers skeletal and yellowed, his eyes already somewhere else. Keep this close, Eleonora, closer than anything. I'd thought he was being sentimental, deathbed confession territory, a man giving his daughter something to remember him by. Maybe he was. Or maybe he was something else entirely. But I've stopped trying to decode my father's last words, because grief is heavy enough without layering mystery on top of it. I tuck the locket beneath the collar of the dress, where it rests against my sternum, and pick up my coat. Time to go. 10:07 a.m. Boston City Hall. The building is brutalist. Concrete and right angles, and the particular brand of institutional ugliness that says we are the government, and we don't care if you like us. I've walked past it 1,000 times, and never once imagined I'd be getting married inside it. Then again, I never imagined a lot of things. Callum is waiting outside the entrance, leaning against a concrete pillar like it's the only thing holding him up. He's wearing a suit, our father's old navy blue, the one he wore to board meetings before the board stopped inviting him. It's too big in the shoulders and too short in the sleeves, and Callum looks like what he is, a 24-year-old boy wearing a dead man's clothes. He sees me and straightens. His face does something complicated. Relief that I'm here, guilt that I have to be, fear of everything that comes next. He opens his mouth. Don't, I say before he can speak. Whatever you're about to say, don't. His jaw tightens. Ellie. I've made my decision, Callum. Respecting it is the least you can do. The words come out harder than I intend them to. Sharper. I see the flinch. Quick. Barely there. But I've been reading my brother's face since before he could talk, and I know what flinching looks like on him. I reach out and straighten his tie. The silk is frayed at the edges. You look handsome, I say, softer now. He catches my hand, holds it. His fingers are cold. You look like Mom, he whispers. That's not a compliment. Despite everything, I almost smile. I know. We stand there for a moment, two remnants of a family that used to fill rooms, reduced to a concrete pillar and a February wind, and the unspoken understanding that after today, nothing will be the same. Then the glass doors open, and a man steps out. He's not Griffith Sutton. I know this because I've done my research, compulsively, obsessively, the way I do everything, and the man in front of me doesn't match any of the photographs I found. This man is mid-30s, sandy-haired, with the lean build of someone who runs long distances, and the watchful eyes of someone who's seen things that would make running seem like a reasonable response. Mrs. Voss, he extends a hand. Rowan Kessler, I'm Mr. Sutton's head of security. His head of security, not his assistant, not his best man. His security. Miss Voss, I correct, shaking his hand. His grip is firm, brief, professional. I'm not Mrs. Anything yet. Something flickers across Kessler's face. It might be amusement, it might be appraisal. It's gone before I can decide. Miss Voss, my apologies. He holds the door open and gestures us inside. Mr. Sutton is waiting in the clerk's office on the second floor, if you'll follow me. We follow. The interior of City Hall is exactly as uninspiring as the exterior. Fluorescent lights, linoleum floors, the faint smell of recycled air and bureaucratic indifference. We pass a couple applying for a parking permit, a man arguing with a clerk about a property tax assessment, a woman with a stroller trying to navigate a door that's slightly too narrow. Normal people, normal lives. I wonder what they'd think if they knew the woman in the $11 dress was about to marry a man worth $400 million for the price of her brother's fingers. Kessler leads us up a flight of stairs and down a corridor lined with frosted glass doors. He stops at the last one, room 214. The nameplate reads, Marriage Licenses and Ceremonies. He's inside, Kessler says, and there's something in his tone. Not a warning, exactly, more like a preparation. The vocal equivalent of bracing for impact. Any advice? The question leaves my mouth before I can stop it. Kessler looks at me for a long moment. Those watchful eyes take me in, the cheap dress, the careful posture, the hand that has drifted unconsciously to the locket at my throat. Don't take the silence personally, he says. Then he opens the door. The room is small, a desk, 4 chairs, an American flag and a Massachusetts state flag flanking a window that overlooks the plaza, a clerk, a woman in her 60s with bifocals, and the patient expression of someone who has watched hundreds of people make the most significant legal decision of their lives in a room the size of a walk-in closet. And him, Griffith Sutton, stands by the window, the way powerful men always seem to stand by windows, as if the world on the other side of the glass is something they're considering purchasing. He's not what I expected. The photographs I found online, press events, charity galas, a Boston magazine feature from 2 years ago titled The Man Who Sees Everything, showed a man who was polished, controlled, corporate handsome in the way that suggests a good tailor and a better publicist. The man in front of me is none of those things. He's bigger than the photograph suggested, taller, broader, the kind of physical presence that makes a small room feel smaller. His suit is charcoal, well cut but not flashy, and his dark auburn hair is slightly disheveled, as if he ran his hands through it one too many times this morning. There's a shadow along his jaw that says he either forgot to shave or decided it wasn't worth the effort. And his eyes. God, his eyes. They're green. Not the bright, cheerful green of spring grass or sea glass or any of the pleasant things people compare green eyes to. These are darker, deeper. The green of old forests, of water too deep to see the bottom of something that grew in the absence of light. They land on me the moment I step through the door, and the weight of his gaze is immediate, physical, like someone pressing a hand flat against my chest. He doesn't smile. He doesn't move. He just looks at me with the focused, unblinking attention of a man who is cataloging everything. The dress, the posture, the locket, the brother hovering at my elbow, and filing it into a system I can't see. I've been looked at by powerful men before. My father was one. His business associates were others. The men who came to collect Callum's debts had a way of looking at me that made me want to shower. This is different. Griffith Sutton doesn't look at me like I'm an object, or a threat, or something to be desired. He looks at me like I'm an equation, a variable he hasn't solved, a piece of data that doesn't fit the model. I hold his gaze. I don't look away. Because my mother taught me posture, and my father taught me composure, but I taught myself this: the ability to stand in front of someone who has all the power and refuse, absolutely refuse, to be the first one to blink. 3 seconds pass. 5. 7. Something shifts in his expression. So subtle I almost miss it. A slight narrowing of the eyes, a fractional tilt of the head, as if I've surprised him. Good. Miss Voss. His voice is low, quiet, the kind of voice that doesn't need volume because it carries authority in its frequency. There's a trace of Southie in it. Not much, buried beneath years of boardrooms and black tie events, but there, a ghost of the place he came from. Mr. Sutton. He studies me for one more second, then he turns to the clerk. Let's begin. No pleasantries, no handshake, no nice to meet you or thank you for coming, or any of the 100 small courtesies that normal people exchange before binding their lives together in a legal contract. Just, let's begin. The clerk clears her throat and picks up a folder. All right, I have the license here, signed and notarized. We just need to complete the ceremony. It's brief. I'll ask each of you to state your vows, exchange rings if you have them, and then we sign the certificate. No rings, Sutton says. The clerk blinks. I'm sorry? No rings. We won't be exchanging them. A beat of silence. Callum shifts beside me. I feel his discomfort radiating outward like heat. That's fine, the clerk says, recovering. Entirely optional. Shall we proceed? Sutton nods once. The clerk begins reading from a card, the standard civil ceremony, stripped of anything that might resemble romance or sentiment. Words like lawfully and pursuant, and do you take this person fill the room with the cadence of a legal filing. Sutton goes first. I, Griffith James Sutton, take you, Eleanor Charlotte Voss, to be my lawfully wedded wife. His voice doesn't waver, doesn't soften. He says the words the way a man might read a contract clause, with precision and absolutely no feeling. My turn. I open my mouth. And for one terrible suspended second, nothing comes out. Because the magnitude of what I'm doing crashes into me all at once. Not gradually, not gently, but like a wave that's been building far offshore and has finally reached the shallows. I am standing in a municipal office in a second-hand dress, marrying a stranger for money, and the only witness who loves me is wearing a dead man's suit and looks like he might vomit. I feel the locket pressing against my sternum, warm, steady, like a second heartbeat. Keep this close, Eleonora, closer than anything. I breathe. I, Eleonora Charlotte Voss, take you, Griffith James Sutton, to be my lawfully wedded husband. The words don't crack, don't falter. They come out clear and composed and completely hollow, and when they're done, they hang in the air between us like smoke. By the power vested in me by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the clerk says, I now pronounce you husband and wife. She pauses. You may kiss, if you wish. The silence that follows is so complete I can hear the fluorescent light buzzing overhead. Sutton's eyes meet mine. There's no question in them, no expectation, just that same green, impenetrable assessment, as if he's waiting to see what I'll do. I don't move. He doesn't either. After a beat, 3 seconds, maybe 4, though it feels like a year, Sutton turns to the clerk. Where do I sign? And that's it. The ceremony is over. I am Mrs. Griffith Sutton. The clerk produces the certificate. Sutton signs first, a sharp, decisive signature that takes less than 2 seconds. He hands me the pen. I take it. Our fingers brush. His hand is warm, large. The knuckles are scarred, not delicately, not decoratively, but in the way hands get scarred when they've been used for things that have nothing to do with signing documents. I sign my name beneath his. The pen feels heavier than it should. Callum is next, the witness signature. His hand is shaking. I can see it from 3 feet away, the tremor in his fingers as he writes his name in small, tight letters, as if he's trying to take up as little space as possible, as if he could make himself small enough to disappear from the thing he caused. When it's done, the clerk collects the papers, smiles her practiced smile, and says, "Congratulations." The word falls into the room like a stone into still water. Nobody responds. Sutton is already reaching for his coat. Kessler materializes in the doorway, as if summoned by some invisible signal. "The car is ready," Kessler says. Sutton nods. He shrugs on his coat, heavy, dark, the kind of coat that costs more than my rent, and turns toward the door. Then he stops. He looks back at me. For one moment, the mask slips, not completely, not enough for me to see what's underneath, but enough. Enough for me to glimpse something in those dark green eyes that isn't calculation or indifference. It might be regret. It might be curiosity. "The car will take you to the estate," he says. "Kessler will show you the house. Your things have been moved." I blink. "Already?" I don't see the point in waiting. There's something in his tone. Not cruelty, exactly. Efficiency. The brisk, clipped cadence of a man who has optimized sentiment out of his life and doesn't understand why anyone would want it back. "And you?" I ask. His brow furrows, almost imperceptibly. "What about me? Will you be at the estate today?" Another pause, longer this time, as if the question has caught him off guard. Not the words themselves, but the fact that I asked, as if no one has asked him where he'll be in a long time. Later, he says, "I have work. Work. On his wedding day." "Of course," I say, and I keep my voice perfectly even, perfectly polished, because I will not give this man the satisfaction of seeing me react. He holds my gaze for one more second. Then he leaves. The door clicks shut behind him. I stand in the clerk's office, newly married, utterly alone, and I think, so this is what it feels like to be bought. Callum's hand finds mine. "Ellie," he whispers, "I'll fix this. I swear to God, I'll fix this." I squeeze his fingers and say nothing. Because there is nothing to fix. This is the deal. This is the price. This is the shape my life takes now. A stranger's name, a stranger's house, a stranger's green eyes looking at me like I'm a puzzle he expects to solve. He doesn't know that I'm not a puzzle. I'm a woman who has been holding the ruins of her family together with her bare hands for 2 years, and I am very, very good at surviving things that should have broken me. If Griffith Sutton thinks I'll be easy to manage, easy to dismiss, easy to file away in whatever system he uses to keep the world at arm's length, he's wrong. I touch the locket at my throat, and I walk out of City Hall into the February cold, into my new life, into the unknown. My hands don't shake. Chapter 2. The Architecture of Suspicion. Griffith Sutton. 3 weeks later. I watch my wife on a 7-inch screen at 4 a.m, and I tell myself it's strategy. The feed is from the hallway camera outside the library, one of 36 I had installed throughout the Manchester estate before she moved in. Night vision. Motion activated. The kind of system designed for high-value target protection. Repurposed to monitor a woman who weighs 120 pounds and spends her evenings reading books I didn't know I owned. She's there again. 3rd night this week. Eleanor sits in the leather chair by the bay window, legs tucked beneath her, a lamp casting a circle of amber light that turns her dark hair to copper. She's wearing a sweater that's too large for her, one of the cashmere ones I had stocked in her closet, and the locket catches the light every time she turns a page. She reads the way some people pray, with complete, absorbed attention, her lips moving occasionally over a word or a phrase, her fingers tracing the spine of the book like it's something living. I've watched her do this for 14 nights. I know her patterns now. She wakes early, 6, sometimes earlier. She makes her own coffee, despite the fact that I told Rowan to arrange a full kitchen staff. She takes it black, which I didn't expect. She walks the grounds in the morning if the weather allows it, always along the same path, down the gravel drive to the seawall, then east toward the point, where she stands for exactly 11 minutes looking at the ocean. I timed it. I've timed everything. The duration of her showers, 14 minutes on average. The number of times she checks her phone during meals, twice, always texts from her brother, always answered immediately. The way she moves through the house, quietly, deliberately, touching nothing that isn't offered to her, as if she's acutely aware that she's a guest in a place she's been told to call home. She never enters my wing. Not once. She respects the boundaries with a precision that should reassure me and instead makes me uneasy, because people who follow rules that perfectly are either saints or strategists, and in my experience, there are no saints. We interrogated him for 3 hours. Gallagher was cooperative, almost too cooperative. No resistance, no lawyer, no attempt to negotiate. He just talked. Rowan pulls out a second folder. He described being contacted by someone he can't identify. No face, no name. Communication through a series of anonymous messages that exploited personal information. His son's medical bills, his ex-wife's custody battle, things that weren't public knowledge. The messages didn't threaten him directly. They guided him, suggested actions, made the betrayal feel like his own idea. I go still. Psychological manipulation. That's what it looks like. And it matches what we pulled from Lenora Walsh's debrief 8 months ago, and what Marcus Hale described before his lawyer shut him down. Rowan leans forward, hands clasped. Griff, this isn't random. Someone is running an operation against us, a targeted, systematic influence campaign designed to turn our people from the inside. I know. I've known, suspected, at least, for months. But hearing it confirmed, hearing Rowan say it out loud in the gray morning light of a conference room that suddenly feels very small, is different. It makes it real. Do we have any leads on who's running it? Not yet. The relay infrastructure is sophisticated. Multiple layers of proxy servers, cryptocurrency payments, communication through channels that self-destruct. Whoever this is, they have resources, and patience, and access to our people's personal information. Yes. I stand and walk to the window. The harbor stretches below, gray water under gray sky, boats rocking in their slips like restless sleepers. 13 names. Someone out there is dismantling me person by person, and I can't see them. What about her, I say. Rowan doesn't ask who I mean. Nothing. She's clean. Everyone's clean until they're not. Griff. Run it again. I don't turn from the window. Full background. Financial records, communications, travel history. Go back further. Her father's business connections, the Voss shipping creditors, anyone she's had contact with in the past 5 years. A pause. I can feel Rowan's disapproval from across the room, solid and silent as a wall. You want me to investigate your wife. I want you to investigate a variable I don't fully understand. She's not a variable, she's a person. In my world, those are the same thing. Another pause. Longer. Fine, Rowan says, and the word carries the weight of every argument he's choosing not to have. I'll run it. But for the record, I think you're wrong about her. Noted. And for the record, I think this thing, whatever's happening to our people, has nothing to do with Eleanor Voss. She doesn't have the profile. She doesn't have the access. She doesn't have the motive. Everyone has a motive, Rowan. You just have to find the right pressure point. He stands, collects the folders, and pauses at the door. Your father wouldn't have done this. The words hit like a fist. I don't respond. Rowan leaves. I stand at the window for a long time, after he's gone, watching the harbor, thinking about pressure points and variables and the way Eleanora Voss touches the locket at her throat like it's the only thing in the world she trusts. 7:48 p.m. The Sutton Estate, Manchester by the Sea. I come home. This is notable because I haven't come home before midnight in 3 weeks. I've been using the office as a bunker, sleeping on the couch when I sleep at all, avoiding the estate because the estate contains her, and she is a complication I don't have the bandwidth to process. But tonight, I come home. I tell myself it's because I need files from the study, because the office HVAC is being serviced, because the drive along Route 127 clears my head. None of these are the real reason. The real reason is that I stood in my office at 6:30, staring at the surveillance feed on my phone, Eleanora in the kitchen, making dinner for one, moving with that quiet efficiency that makes even mundane tasks look deliberate. And something in my chest contracted hard enough to make me set down the phone. I don't examine that contraction. I drive. The estate is a sprawling federal-style house on 4 acres of oceanfront property. My grandfather bought it when he was still a fisherman pretending to be a gentleman. My father grew up here. I tore it down to the studs and rebuilt it after he died, because I needed something to do with my hands that wasn't destroying people who deserved it. The lights are on in the kitchen when I pull into the drive. Through the window, I can see Eleanora at the counter, slicing something. Vegetables, it looks like, with a competence that suggests she's done this 1,000 times. The room is warm with light. Steam rises from a pot on the stove. It looks like a home. The thought is so foreign, I nearly get back in the car. Instead, I walk through the front door, hang my coat, and follow the light. She hears me before she sees me. I know because her hand pauses mid-slice, her shoulders lift a fraction, and there's a half-second of tension in her posture before she composes herself and turns. "You're home," she says. Not a question, an observation, delivered with the same neutral precision I'd use to note a change in weather conditions. "I needed files from the study," I say. "Of course." She turns back to the cutting board. I should go to the study, get the files I supposedly need, leave. Instead, I stand in the doorway of my own kitchen like a man who has forgotten how rooms work. The kitchen smells like garlic and rosemary and something else. Warmth, maybe. Comfort. The kind of scent that used to fill this house when my mother was alive and the world still made sense. "Have you eaten?" she asks, without looking up. "No. I made enough for 2, if you want." The offer is simple. Uncomplicated. A woman who made too much soup, offering to share it with the man whose name she carries and whose face she barely knows. I should decline. I should take my files and retreat to the study. Maintain the distance that keeps this arrangement functional. Keep her in the category of variable rather than person. Because variables don't hurt you when they change. "All right," I say. She glances up, surprised. Hiding it quickly, but I see it. The slight widening of her eyes, the almost imperceptible parting of her lips. She didn't expect me to say yes. Neither did I. She sets a second place at the kitchen island. Not the formal dining room, which seats 14 and has been used exactly never since I rebuilt this house, but the kitchen island, where the stools are worn and the lighting is warm and the window above the sink shows nothing but black ocean and scattered stars. We eat in silence for 3 minutes. The food is good, better than good. Some kind of roasted root vegetable soup with bread she appears to have baked herself, dense and warm. The kind of bread that requires patience and attention and all the things I associate with people who aren't me. "You bake," I say. It comes out like an accusation. The corner of her mouth twitches. "You sound surprised." I am. Because Beacon Hill girls don't bake. Because people don't usually bake for themselves. Something shifts in her expression. Softens, just barely. "My father baked, every Sunday, sourdough. He said it was the only thing he made that required him to slow down." She pauses. "I learned from him." Her father. "Harland Voss." I know the file. Shipping magnate, old Boston money, died 2 years ago of a heart attack. The company collapsed within 6 months of his death, debts surfacing like bodies from a river. You were close, I say. Yes. She doesn't elaborate. Doesn't offer the kind of emotional disclosure that most people use to fill silence. She just says yes, and lets the word carry whatever weight it needs to carry. I respect that more than I should. Your staff looks at you with fear, she says. The shift is so abrupt I nearly spill my water. Excuse me. Your people, the security team, the household staff, they watch you the way prey animals watch a predator. Constant awareness, constant readiness to run. She dips her bread into the soup, unhurried. Why is that? I set down my spoon. You've been observing my staff. I've been living in your house for 3 weeks. Observation is unavoidable. Is it? Her gray eyes meet mine across the island, steady, unflinching. That same refusal to blink that caught me off guard at the courthouse. You read documents in the library at night, I say. Shipping manifests. Old Voss shipping records. I had them archived in the study, but they've been moved. It's a test, a probe. I want to see how she reacts when she realizes I've been watching her. She doesn't flinch. They were in a box, labeled Voss. Miscellaneous. I assumed they were included with my father's things when my belongings were moved here. She holds my gaze. Is there a problem? You're reading my documents. I'm reading my father's documents. They were his before they were yours. They became mine when I acquired Voss Shipping's assets. Legally, yes. Emotionally, no. She takes another spoonful of soup, calm as still water. But if you'd prefer I stop, I will. It's your house. Your house. Not our house. Not even this house. Your house. The word choice is precise. Deliberate. A woman drawing a line and daring me to acknowledge it. Read whatever you like, I say. She nods once. We finish the meal in silence. But it's a different kind of silence than before. Not the empty, sterile quiet of two strangers occupying the same space, but something thicker. Charged. The kind of silence that happens when two people are both aware that something has shifted and neither is willing to name it. She washes the dishes. I dry them. I don't know why. The estate has a housekeeper. There's a dishwasher. There is absolutely no operational reason for me to stand beside this woman with a dish towel in my hands, close enough to smell her shampoo. Something clean and faintly floral, like linen dried in sunlight, and watch the way water runs over her slender fingers. I do it anyway. Sutton, she says, and the use of my surname instead of my first name is noted and filed. Yes. Why did you marry me? The real reason. I set down the dish I'm holding. Port, access, regulatory licenses, assets I needed. That's the contractual reason. I'm asking for the real one. She's looking at me now, full attention, those pale gray eyes that see too much and reveal too little. She's standing 3 feet away, dish towel over her shoulder, her dark hair loose and slightly damp at the temples from the steam. She's beautiful. The thought arrives like a trespasser, unwelcome, unannounced, immediately detained and escorted from the premises. I don't allow it. I can't. Because admitting that my contractual wife is beautiful is the first step on a road that ends the same way every road in my life ends, with someone I trusted standing on the other side of a wreckage they helped create. The real reason is the same as the contractual one, I say. I needed something. You had it. That's the entirety of it. She studies me for a long moment. You're a terrible liar, she says, for a man in the intelligence business. Then she hangs the dish towel on the oven handle, says good night, Sutton, and walks out of the kitchen. I stand there for a full minute after she's gone, dish towel in hand, the kitchen still warm with steam and the ghost of her scent. The surveillance feed on my phone shows her walking down the hall toward the library. She pauses at the door, touches the locket at her throat, enters. I watch her settle into the leather chair, pull a book from the shelf, and begin to read. And I think, with a clarity that cuts like a blade, she is either the most dangerous person in this house or the most honest. and I am no longer certain which possibility frightens me more. Chapter 3. The Cracks in the Glass. Eleonora Voss. The dress is a weapon. I know this because Rowan Kessler's assistant delivered it to my room this afternoon with a typed card that read, "For tonight's event, car at 6:30. G.S. Not Griffith, not your husband, just initials, as if even his name is something he rations." The dress is midnight blue, floor length, with a neckline that dips lower than anything I've worn since the year I stopped attending debutante balls. It's silk, real silk, the kind that moves like water and costs like sin, and when I slide it over my hips and look in the mirror, I barely recognize the woman staring back at me. She looks expensive. She looks like she belongs to someone. I touch the locket at my throat and think about the $11 consignment dress I wore to my wedding, and the distance between that woman and this one feels both infinite and razor thin. Same woman, different costume. Story of my life. The car arrives at exactly 6:30, a black Escalade with tinted windows, and a driver named Bennett, who has the build of a defensive lineman and the conversational skills of a parking meter. He opens the door, waits for me to slide in, and we pull away from the estate in silence. Manchester by the Sea disappears behind us. The February dark swallows the coastline, and all I can see in the window is my own reflection. Pale face, dark hair pinned up, locket glinting beneath the hollow of my throat. I look like my mother. Callum was right. It isn't a compliment. Victoria Voss née Hartford, Beacon Hill born, finishing school polished, married to money, and devoted to the performance of it. She taught me how to smile at people I loathed, how to hold a champagne flute without looking like I was drowning in it, how to enter a room full of predators and pretend I was one of them. She also taught me that a woman's primary value was decorative, that vulnerability was a defect to be concealed, and that love was an unreliable investment with diminishing returns. Then she moved to London 6 weeks after my father died and married a man named Jeffrey who makes bespoke suits and has opinions about cheese. I haven't spoken to her in 14 months. The car crosses into Boston. The skyline appears, glass and steel and light, the city's particular brand of beauty that's always felt more like a threat than a promise. Bennett navigates toward the back bay, pulling up in front of the Fairmont Copley Plaza, where a red carpet has been rolled out, and photographers cluster at the entrance like well-dressed vultures. "Mr. Sutton is inside," Bennett says. "East entrance," he said to find Kessler. I step out of the car and into the February wind, which immediately tries to murder my hairstyle. The cameras flash. I smile. The Victoria Voss smile, practiced and impenetrable, and walk through the doors. The lobby of the Copley Plaza is a cathedral of gilt and marble. Crystal chandeliers the size of small cars. Flowers everywhere, white roses, winter jasmine, branches of forced cherry blossom, arranged with the kind of artistic precision that costs thousands and is designed to look effortless. The event is a fundraiser for the Boston Children's Hospital Foundation. 300 guests at $5,000 a plate, all of them dressed in the particular uniform of old money philanthropy. Designer gowns, inherited jewelry, the practiced generosity of people who give away money they'll never miss. I know these people. I grew up among them. That's precisely why I'm here. Kessler materializes at my elbow as if he's been tracking me by satellite, which, knowing this household, he probably has. "Mrs. Sutton." He says my married name without irony or warmth, just fact. "Mr. Sutton is in the main ballroom, northwest corner, near the bar." Of course he is. Something almost like a smile crosses Kessler's face. Almost. He doesn't like these events. Then why does he attend them? Because the people he needs to watch are here. Kessler offers his arm. "Shall I escort you, or do you prefer to make an entrance?" "Lead the way." I've made enough entrances for one lifetime. He guides me through the crowd. I notice, as I always notice, the way people react to Kessler. A subtle widening of the path, eyes tracking him, and then quickly looking away. He moves through a room the way a shark moves through water. Not aggressive, just unmistakably dangerous. And then I see Sutton. He's standing at the far end of the ballroom, near a bay of windows, drink in hand, surrounded by a semicircle of men in tuxedos. He's taller than all of them. His suit is black, sharp-shouldered, fitted in a way that makes the other men look like they're wearing costumes. His auburn hair is combed back tonight, and the sharp planes of his face catch the chandelier light like something carved. He looks devastating. He also looks like he'd rather be anywhere else on Earth. His eyes find me across the room. There's no flicker this time. No widening of the eyes or tightening of the jaw. Just that steady, green, assessing gaze, the one that takes in the dress, the hair, the exposed line of my collarbone, and files it all away without any visible reaction. But I've been watching this man for 3 weeks now. 3 weeks of shared silences and careful distances, and the occasional dinner that feels like chess played with cutlery. I've learned to read the things he doesn't show. His hand tightens on his glass, just barely. I see it. He excuses himself from the group and crosses toward me, his movements fluid and unhurried, as if the room parts for him by instinct rather than choice. When he reaches me, he stops at the exact distance that reads as intimate to an observer and impersonal to us. Close enough that I catch his scent, sandalwood, black coffee, something smoky and warm beneath, but not close enough to touch. "You're here," he says. Was there doubt? There's always doubt. The words carry more weight than they should. I let them pass. "You look." He stops. His jaw works, as if the sentence is fighting him on the way out. "Appropriate?" I offer. I was going to say different. Better or worse. His eyes drop to my neckline, just for a second, then back to my face. "We should circulate," he says, which isn't an answer. He offers his arm. I take it. His body is warm beneath the suit jacket, solid and tightly coiled, like a man who is constantly prepared to either fight or flee, and hasn't yet decided which. We move through the room together, and I play my part. I smile. I make conversation. I ask the wives of hedge fund managers about their children, and the husbands about their golf handicaps, and the politicians about whatever they've most recently voted for, and I do it with the effortless, practiced grace of a woman who was raised to be exactly this, ornamental, charming, invisible, in her perfection. Sutton's hand rests on the small of my back. His palm is warm through the silk. Every few minutes, his thumb shifts, a small, unconscious movement that sends electricity down my spine. I don't think he knows he's doing it. I don't tell him. We've been circulating for 40 minutes when a woman approaches. She's tall, nearly my height in heels, with sharp cheekbones and silver blonde hair cut in a precise bob that frames a face designed for boardrooms and chess games. She's wearing black, simple and expensive, and she moves with the easy confidence of someone who has never once doubted her right to occupy any space she enters. "Griffith." Her voice is warm, modulated, carrying the kind of deliberate friendliness that immediately puts me on edge. "It's been too long." Sutton's hand stiffens against my back. The shift is so subtle that someone less attuned to his body language would miss it. I don't miss it. "Margot," he says. His voice is level, controlled, but the warmth has been surgically removed. "And this must be the famous Mrs. Sutton." The woman turns to me, extending a hand. Her grip is firm, her smile wide and practiced. "Margot Calder. Griffith and I are old colleagues. I've been dying to meet you." Dying to meet you. The phrase is standard cocktail party currency, meaningless. Except that Margot Calder says it while looking at me with eyes the color of pale blue ice, and something in the precision of her attention makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. "Eleonora Sutton," I say, shaking her hand. "A pleasure." "The pleasure is absolutely mine. I've heard so much about the Voss family." Her gaze sharpens, just fractionally. Your father was Harlan Voss, wasn't he? The shipping magnate? The question is casual. The delivery is not. He was, I say. A fascinating man. I had the privilege of meeting him once, years ago, a maritime conference in Newport. He had such a brilliant mind for logistics. Her eyes drift to my throat. To the locket. What a lovely piece. Is it an heirloom? My fingers find the locket before I can stop them. The old reflex. The tell I've never been able to train out of myself. It was my father's, I say. A gift. How sentimental. Margot's smile doesn't waver. I'm a great believer in keeping the past close. You never know when it might prove useful. The words are innocuous. The subtext is not. I don't know what it is. Instinct, pattern recognition, the particular frequency of threat that my mother's training taught me to identify, but everything about this woman makes my skin crawl. Sutton must feel it too, because his hand presses harder against my back. A signal, a claim. If you'll excuse us, he says, his voice clipped. We have other commitments. Of course. Margot steps back, still smiling. Eleonora, I do hope we'll see more of each other. I have a feeling we have a great deal to talk about. She turns and disappears into the crowd with the fluid grace of someone who has just accomplished exactly what she set out to do. I wait until she's out of earshot. Who is she? I ask, keeping my voice low. Sutton's jaws tight. Margot Calder. She runs a competing intelligence firm, Calder Strategic Partners. And she's your old colleague. Former. We served together during the contractor years. Before Sutton Meridian. You don't like her. I don't trust her. Is there a difference? For you? He doesn't answer. His hand stays on my back, guiding me through the crowd toward the bar. His grip is firmer than before. Possessive, almost, though I doubt he'd call it that. She asked about my father. I say, I noticed. And my locket. I noticed that too. Does she have a reason to be interested in my father's things? He stops walking, turns to face me. The crowd swirls around us. Laughter, music, the clink of crystal. But in this small pocket of space, it's just us. I don't know, he says. And for the first time since I've met him, I hear something in his voice that isn't control. It's uncertainty. Griffith Sutton doesn't know something, and it's eating him alive. Stay away from her, he says. If she approaches you again, find Kessler. Is that an order? It's a strong recommendation. From my husband or from my handler? His eyes flash, green, dark, dangerous. From someone who has watched people he trusts make decisions they can't explain, and who would very much prefer that you don't become one of them. The words land with unexpected force, not because of what he said, but because of what's underneath, a raw, unvarnished admission that he's afraid, not of me, for me. I hold his gaze. I can take care of myself, I say. I know you can. He pauses. That doesn't mean you should have to. The sentence hangs between us like something fragile, a piece of glass suspended in air, waiting to shatter or be caught. Before I can respond, a senator's wife appears at Sutton's elbow, gushing about a donation and demanding introductions, and the moment is gone. We don't get it back. 1:47 a.m. The Sutton estate. The house is dark when the car pulls into the drive. Sutton rode in a separate vehicle. He left the gala 2 hours after I did, staying behind for what Kessler called a private conversation with someone whose name I wasn't given. I came home alone, changed out of the midnight blue dress, and tried to sleep. I can't. Margot Calder's face keeps surfacing in the dark behind my eyelids. That pale blue stare. The way her gaze snagged on the locket like a fishhook. I'm a great believer in keeping the past close. You never know when it might prove useful. Something is wrong. I don't know what. I don't have evidence or data or any of the things Sutton would require before drawing a conclusion. I just have the instinct my mother bred into me, the radar for danger that's kept me alive in rooms full of people who smile while they calculate your weaknesses. The kitchen light is on. I know before I reach the doorway that he's there. I can smell the whiskey. Expensive, smoky, the kind he keeps in the study cabinet and never seems to actually drink. He's sitting at the island. No jacket, no tie, shirt untucked, with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. The bottle is in front of him. The glass is full. His hands are wrapped around it, but he's not drinking. He's just holding it, staring at the amber liquid like it contains answers he can't quite read. He looks exhausted. Not the performative exhaustion of a busy man, the real kind, the kind that lives in the bones. The kind that comes from carrying something so heavy for so long that your body has forgotten what it feels like to set it down. I should go back to bed. I should respect the distance, honor the contract, stay in my lane. Instead, I walk into the kitchen. He doesn't look up. Can't sleep? I ask. Don't usually. I pull out the stool across from him and sit down. The island stretches between us. Granite, cold, the width of a treaty no one signed. He glances up. Those green eyes, dulled by fatigue, take me in. The old sweater I'm wearing, the loose hair, the bare feet. I look nothing like the woman in the midnight blue dress. I look like what I am at 2 a.m, a 28-year-old woman who is scared and tired, and sharing a kitchen with a man who is both. You should be asleep, he says. So should you. I'm working. You're holding a glass you're not drinking from and staring at a countertop. That's not working. That's brooding. Something flickers in his expression. Not a smile. Griffith Sutton doesn't smile at 2 a.m, or possibly ever, but something adjacent, a crack in the armor, a hairline fracture in the stone. I've been told I brood professionally, he says. Is that what the intelligence business calls it? We call it strategic contemplation. My lips twitch. I hold it back. Smiling at a Sutton joke feels like crossing a line neither of us has acknowledged exists. Silence settles. The refrigerator hums. The ocean murmurs distantly through the walls, the steady, indifferent rhythm of something that was here before us and will be here after. Are you all right? I ask. The question is simple, small, the kind of thing people ask each other every day without meaning it. I mean it. He knows I mean it. And I watch the knowledge land. Watch him register that someone is asking about him, not his company, not his strategy, not the list of names he carries in his jacket pocket. Him. And I watch the way it throws him, the way his hands tighten on the glass, the way his jaw flexes as if the kindness of it is a blow he wasn't braced for. I'm tired, he says. Not physically, I hear that. He's tired, in the way that exhaustion is just another word for, I've been holding this alone for so long I've forgotten there's any other way. I don't try to fix it. I don't offer solutions or comfort or any of the things people offer when they want to help but don't know how. I just stay. I sit across from him in the warm kitchen light and I stay. The minutes pass. 5, 10, 15. He doesn't speak. Neither do I. But somewhere in the silence, something shifts. The tension in his shoulders loosens by a fraction. His grip on the glass relaxes. His breathing evens out, slow and steady, and I realize this might be the first time in a very long time that Griffith Sutton has sat in a room with another person and not been waiting for them to betray him. At some point, I don't know when, the clock has stopped mattering. He pushes the untouched whiskey away, looks at me. You stayed, he says. Yes. Why? The honest answer is complicated. The honest answer involves the fact that I recognize the shape of his loneliness, because it's the same shape as mine. Vast and quiet, and so deeply ingrained that most people mistake it for strength. But I don't say that. Because it seemed like someone should, I say. He stares at me for a long moment. 5 seconds. 10. The kind of silence that would be unbearable with anyone else. But feels, here, in this kitchen, in the small hours of a February night, like the closest thing to honesty we've managed. Then he stands, picks up the glass, walks to the sink, pours the whiskey out. The amber liquid spirals down the drain, and the waste of it, the deliberateness of it, feels like a statement I don't fully understand. "Good night, Eleonora," he says. Not Voss, not Mrs. Sutton. Eleonora. My name in his mouth sounds different, lower, rougher, like he's been holding it in his chest all night and only now released it. "Good night," I say. He leaves. I sit in the kitchen for a long time after he's gone. I think about Margot Calder's ice blue eyes and the way she looked at my locket. I think about Sutton's hand on my back and the almost sentence he couldn't finish. I think about the whiskey he poured down the drain and what it means when a man who doesn't sleep sits with a woman who can't and calls it nothing. I touch the locket. Warm, steady, the faintest irregularity along the edge. A seam I've never noticed before, so thin it might be a scratch, might be nothing, might be everything. I close my fingers around it and hold on. Chapter 4. The Weight of Names. Griffith Sutton. The call comes at 4:17 in the morning, and I answer it on the first ring because I'm already awake. I'm always awake. "It's Hewitt," Rowan says. I close my eyes. Barrett Hewitt, Rowan's deputy, 8 years with the firm, former Secret Service. The kind of man who takes a bullet for a living and considers it professional development. I promoted him to deputy 2 years ago because he was methodical, discreet, and possessed the particular brand of loyalty that comes from a man who has found the place he was built for and intends to die there. What did he do? Copied the personal security protocols for 3 of our clients, Senator Walsh, the Kimura Foundation chair, and Prideaux at Helix Corp. Transferred them to an encrypted server we almost didn't catch. Our forensic team flagged an anomaly in the access logs around midnight. Where is he now? Containment Room B. He's not fighting it. A pause. Griff, he's got the same look, the same goddamn blank face. I asked him why, and he said he doesn't know. Silence. Yeah. I hang up, get dressed, drive to the office through empty streets that look like wet black glass under the sodium lights. Boston at 4 in the morning is a city pretending to sleep, and I'm a man pretending to be functional, and neither of us is convincing. Barrett Hewitt sits in Containment Room B, a windowless space with gray walls, a steel table, and the particular atmosphere of a place designed to make people feel observed. He's still in the clothes he was wearing when they caught him, a blue Oxford, khakis, the kind of outfit a man wears when he's planning to do something unremarkable and instead does something unforgivable. He looks up when I enter. His face is blank, not the blankness of a man who doesn't care, but the blankness of a man who is staring at a hole where his understanding should be, and finding nothing. I've seen this face 13 times now. It never gets easier. I sit across from him, place my hands flat on the table, say nothing. Hewitt breaks first. I don't know why I did it. There it is, the refrain, the prayer, the epitaph of every person who has sat in a chair like this one and tried to explain something that resists explanation. Try harder, I say. His hands are shaking. I notice because Barrett Hewitt's hands don't shake. This is a man who once disarmed an active shooter in a crowded hotel lobby without spilling his coffee. His hands are instruments of precision and control. They're trembling now like leaves in a storm. There were messages, he says. I don't know how they started. Anonymous. They knew things about me. About Monica's cancer treatment, the bills, the insurance denial. They knew about the second mortgage. About my daughter's school. Who sent them? I don't know. No names, no faces, just messages. At first, they were sympathetic, like someone checking in. Then, they started asking small things. Nothing that seemed dangerous. Just information. Schedules. Routine details. It happened so gradually, I didn't even... His voice cracks. I didn't realize what I was doing until I'd already done it. I study him. He's telling the truth. I know this with the certainty of a man who has spent his career reading liars, because Barrett Hewitt is not lying. He is genuinely bewildered by his own actions, as if some part of him fell asleep at the wheel and another part, a part he doesn't recognize, took over. They targeted your vulnerabilities, I say. Yes. Used your personal information to build a relationship of trust. Yes. And by the time the requests escalated, you were already in too deep to recognize what was happening. His face crumbles. Not dramatically. Barrett Hewitt doesn't do dramatic. It's quieter than that. A slow collapse of the features, like a building settling into its own foundation. I would have died for you, Griff. You know that. I do know that. That's what makes it unbearable. I know, I say. And then, because I owe him this much, you're not the first, and you won't be the last. I leave the room. Rowan is waiting in the corridor. His face is a controlled storm, the fury of a man watching his people be turned against him, one, by an enemy he can't find. This confirms it, he says. It's a coordinated operation. Someone is mapping our internal vulnerabilities and exploiting them systematically. Monica's medical bills, that information isn't public. Whoever's behind this has access to private financial data, personal communications, things that require serious intelligence capability. Calder, I say. Rowan pauses. You sure? She has the resources, she has the motive, and she was at the gala 2 weeks ago, circling my wife like a predator sizing up bait. That's circumstantial. It's a starting point. I stop walking, turn to face him. Where are we on the background check? Rowan's expression shifts. Tightens. Eleanora's clean. I've run it twice. No hidden accounts, no suspicious communications, no connections to anyone in Calder's network. Her financial records are exactly what you'd expect from a woman supporting a bankrupt estate and a brother in debt. She's not hiding anything, Griff. Everyone's hiding something. Not everyone. His voice is quiet, steady, the voice of a man who knows what he's about to say will land badly and says it anyway. Sometimes people are exactly what they appear to be, and sometimes they're better at hiding than you are at finding. Rowan's jaw tightens. You want to know what I found that's actually interesting? Not about Eleanora, about her father. I wait. Harlan Voss made 3 trips to Newport in the 18 months before his death. Business trips, ostensibly maritime conferences, industry events. But his credit card records show charges at a private data security firm called Aegis Vault. Small outfit, specializes in encrypted storage. He visited them 3 times. The last visit was 11 days before his heart attack. Encrypted storage, I repeat, for what? That's what I can't figure out. Voss Shipping was hemorrhaging money. Why would a man on the verge of bankruptcy be paying for high-level data encryption? Unless he had something worth encrypting. Rowan nods. Something he wanted hidden. Something someone else might want found. I think of Eleanora in the library, reading her father's old shipping manifests. I think of the locket at her throat, the way her fingers find it like a compass needle finding north. I think of Margot Calder at the gala, eyes tracking that locket with predatory interest. What did you leave her, Harland? And does she know she's carrying it? 8:22 p.m. The Sutton estate. I find her in the study. She's sitting at my father's old desk, the one I kept when I rebuilt the house, the one piece of furniture I couldn't bring myself to replace, surrounded by papers, shipping manifests, financial statements, correspondence from Voss Shipping's final years. She's organized them into neat stacks, each one tabbed with colored post-it notes, and she's studying a ledger with the focused intensity of someone solving a problem she hasn't named yet. She doesn't hear me approach. Or maybe she does and chooses not to acknowledge it. Either option bothers me. You've been busy, I say from the doorway. She looks up, those pale gray eyes, clear, calm, giving nothing away. These are my father's records. I told you I'd be reading them. You did. What you didn't tell me is that you'd be cross-referencing them with Sutton Meridian's port schedules. A beat of silence. The schedules were in the same box, she says. They were filed together. By whom? By whoever packed my belongings when they were moved here. Your staff, presumably. She's composed. Not defensive. Composed. There's a difference, and I should know, because I've spent my career studying the distance between the two. A defensive person explains too much, offers justifications, fills silence with noise. Eleonora does none of these things. She states facts and waits. It's infuriating. Why are you going through your father's financials? Because he was my father. Because his company collapsed. Because I'd like to understand why. You already know why. The debt was catastrophic. The debt was a symptom, not a cause. She sets down the ledger, looks at me fully. My father ran Voss Shipping for 32 years. He navigated 2 recessions, a port strike, and the 2008 collapse without missing a single creditor payment. Then, in the space of 18 months, everything fell apart. The debt appeared from nowhere. Contracts that went wrong, investments that evaporated, creditors who materialized like ghosts. She pauses. It doesn't make sense. Not for a man like him. She's smart. The realization isn't new. I've known she was intelligent since the courthouse, since she looked me in the eye and said, "We understand the contract." That's not the same thing. But this is different. This isn't social intelligence or emotional acuity. This is analytical. She's looking at her father's collapse with the same forensic attention I'd apply to a compromised operation, and she's reaching conclusions that I should have reached months ago. Harlan Voss's destruction sounds a lot like mine. Sudden, inexplicable, engineered. I file the thought, file her, step into the study. You think someone sabotaged him. I think the timeline doesn't add up, and I think you know that, because you acquired his assets, and a man like you doesn't acquire anything without understanding exactly what he's buying. She's right. I acquired Voss Shipping because the port contracts were valuable, and the regulatory licenses were irreplaceable. But I didn't dig into the why of its collapse. I treated it as an opportunity, not a mystery. That was a mistake. What are you looking for specifically? I ask. A pattern. Something that explains the acceleration of debt in his final year. Something he might have found before he... She stops. Her hand goes to the locket. The reflex. Before he died, I finish. Yes. I should help her. I should sit down, pull the files toward me, apply 2 decades of intelligence training to the puzzle she's assembled on my dead father's desk. Instead, I do what I always do. I test her. Are you looking for something specific, Eleonora? Something your father might have left behind? Her eyes sharpen. What do you mean? I mean that you've spent 5 weeks reading dead men's paperwork in a house that belongs to a man you married for money. I mean that you're cross-referencing shipping schedules with financial records at 8 o'clock at night instead of doing whatever it is that wives do in houses they didn't choose. I step closer. I mean that in my experience, when someone goes looking this hard, it's because they already know what they expect to find. The air between us changes. She stands, slowly, deliberately, the way she does everything, with the rigid, practiced control of a woman who learned to manage her reactions before she learned to have them. Are you accusing me of something? I'm asking you a question. No, you're testing me. You've been testing me since the day I walked into that courthouse. Her voice doesn't rise, doesn't crack, but it carries an edge I haven't heard before, the sound of something sharp being unsheathed. You watch me on your cameras. You time my movements. You had Kessler investigate my background. Yes, I know about that. Your head of security is discreet, but he's not invisible, and I've spent my entire life noticing the people who watch me. The silence that follows is absolute. She knows about the surveillance. She knows about the background check. And she hasn't said a word until now. If you think I'm the enemy, she says, why did you marry me? The question is a blade, and she's holding it steady. Because enemies are easier to control when they're close, I say. The words come out before I can stop them, cold, clinical. The voice of the man I've become, the one who treats people like variables, who measures trust in risk assessments, who has forgotten what it feels like to say something honest without calculating its strategic value. Something flickers across her face. Not hurt. I expected hurt, expected the flinch, the wet eyes, the retreat. She doesn't give me any of it. What I get instead is worse. Fury. Quiet, controlled, incandescent fury. The kind that doesn't shout or throw things. The kind that looks at you with absolute clarity and decides, in that moment, exactly what you're worth. You're a coward, she says. The word lands like a gunshot. You sit in this house with your cameras and your lists and your background checks, and you tell yourself it's strategy. You tell yourself that suspecting everyone is the same as protecting yourself. But it isn't. It's fear. And fear dressed up as intelligence is still just fear. She picks up the ledger, holds it against her chest like a shield. I married you to save my brother. That's the truth. I have told you nothing but the truth since the day we met, and you have done nothing but look for the lie in it. So here's what I want to know, Sutton. She steps toward me, close enough that I can see the pulse in her throat, the slight tremble in her hands that she's fighting to suppress, the absolute, unwavering steadiness of her gaze. When does it end? When do you stop looking for the betrayal in everyone and just see them? I don't answer. I can't. Because the honest answer is, I don't know. She waits. 3 seconds. 5. 10. An eternity compressed into the space between two people, standing in a dead man's study. Then she walks past me. Her shoulder brushes mine as she goes. It's not accidental. It's a punctuation mark. A period at the end of a sentence she's done speaking. I hear her footsteps in the hallway, the creak of the stair, the soft click of her bedroom door. I stand in the study alone. The papers are still spread across the desk, her father's records, the careful, colored tabs. The evidence of a woman who has been trying to understand the shape of a mystery she doesn't yet know she's at the center of. I think about what Rowan said. Sometimes people are exactly what they appear to be. I think about what she said. Fear dressed up as intelligence is still just fear. I think about my father, sitting on that porch in Southie, watching the street with patient eyes. You only get one, Griff. I close my eyes. And for the first time in 18 months, I ask myself a different question. Not, when will she betray me? But, what if she never does? The question is terrifying. It's also, I realize, standing in the amber light of a dead man's desk lamp, surrounded by the ghost of her anger and the lingering scent of linen and flowers. The first honest thought I've had in a very long time. Chapter 5. What the Locket Holds. Eleonora Voss. I haven't spoken to Sutton in 4 days. Not because he's avoiding me, though he is, in that particular way of his that involves being physically present in the house while existing on a different emotional continent. He comes and goes at his usual brutal hours. His coffee mug appears in the sink each morning, still faintly warm. The newspaper sits on the kitchen counter, folded to the financial section now instead of nothing at all. He's adjusting, recalibrating. A man who had the walls blown out of him by a woman who called him a coward and who is now trying to rebuild them with the one tool he has left, silence. I'm letting him. Not because I'm patient, because I'm angry. 4 days, and the fury hasn't dimmed. If anything, it's sharpened. Honed itself against the whetstone of every interaction we haven't had, every meal I've eaten alone, every night I've walked past his study and seen the light burning beneath the door, and not knocked. Because enemies are easier to control when they're close. The words play on a loop in my head. Not because they wounded me. They did. But that's not why they stay. They stay because I saw his face when he said them. I saw the half-second delay between the thought and the delivery. The way his jaw locked, like a man bracing for recoil. He didn't mean it. Or he meant it the way a cornered animal means the bite. Not out of malice, but out of terror. Griffith Sutton is terrified of me, not of what I might do, of what I might be. He's terrified that I might be exactly what I appear to be, an honest woman with no hidden agenda, because that would mean his entire operating system is wrong. It would mean that trust is possible, that not everyone turns. And if that's true, then he's been alone for no reason. That's the thing that would break him. So he retreats, and I let him, and the house fills with the particular silence of two people who have said too much and not nearly enough. But I'm not idle. I'm looking. The boxes arrived 6 weeks ago, packed by Sutton's people when my belongings were moved from the Beacon Hill apartment. 7 cardboard boxes, neatly labeled, Voss, Personal, Voss, Financial, Voss, Correspondence, Voss, Miscellaneous. The sum total of a family's history, reduced to corrugated cardboard and packing tape. I've been going through them systematically. At first it was grief. The need to touch things my father touched, read words he wrote, feel the texture of a life that ended too soon. But grief has a way of sharpening into something else when the numbers don't add up. And the numbers don't add up. I've reconstructed Voss Shipping's final 18 months from the financial records, bank statements, creditor notices, contract amendments, insurance filings. My father was meticulous. Every transaction documented, every decision annotated, in his careful, slanting hand. The records tell a story, but it's the wrong story. It's the story of a company that should have survived. The contracts that went wrong, 4 major shipping agreements that collapsed in quick succession, each one due to circumstances that seem random but, when mapped together, form a pattern of coordinated failure. A port closure in Rotterdam that delayed a critical shipment, an insurance claim denied on a technicality that no one caught in time, a client who defaulted on payment after 20 years of perfect credit, a regulatory hold on a container that turned out to be based on fabricated intelligence. 1 failure is bad luck, 2 is a pattern, 4 is a campaign. My father saw it. I found the letters this morning. They were in the bottom of the correspondence box, beneath a stack of Christmas cards and old board meeting agendas. 3 letters, handwritten, undated, folded into quarters, and tucked inside an envelope that had no address, no stamp, no name. Just the word proof, written in block capitals on the front. The handwriting is my father's, but it's not the handwriting I know, the steady, elegant script of board reports and birthday cards. This is different, rushed, the pen pressing hard enough to score the paper, the letters tight and cramped, as if he was writing in secret and didn't have time to be careful. The first letter. Something is wrong. The failures aren't random. Someone is engineering the collapse, manipulating contracts, feeding false information to regulators, triggering defaults through intermediaries I can't identify. I've tried to trace the source, but the operational structure is layered, multiple proxies, encrypted communications, financial channels that loop through jurisdictions designed to obstruct inquiry. I don't know who, but I know why. Someone wants the company, not the assets, the infrastructure. The port access, the regulatory licenses, the relationships that took 30 years to build. They're not trying to buy Voss Shipping. They're trying to burn it down so they can pick through the ashes. The second letter. Newport, Aegis Vault. I've found something, not the source, but the mechanism. Financial records that trace the manipulation back through a series of shell companies. I've had the data encrypted and stored. If anything happens to me, the proof exists. It's close. Closer than they think. The third letter. Eleonora. If you're reading this, I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. I should have trusted you with this, instead of trying to protect you from it. The proof is with you. It's always been with you. Keep the locket close. Closer than anything. I read the letters 3 times. Then I read them again. My hands are shaking. Not the delicate tremor of fear. The deep, bone-level vibration of a world rearranging itself around a new axis. My father didn't just die, he was destroyed. Systematically, deliberately, by someone who dismantled his company the way you dismantle a machine, piece by piece, with precision and patience and the cold efficiency of someone who understood exactly how much pressure to apply and where. And before it killed him, he found the proof. And he hid it. In me. The proof is with you. It's always been with you. My fingers find the locket. The old reflex. But this time, it's not comfort I'm looking for. It's information. I hold the locket up to the light. Gold. Worn smooth by years of contact with my skin. The chain thin and delicate. I've worn it every day since my father died. I've held it in moments of grief and fear and quiet desperation, pressing it against my sternum like a second heartbeat. I never looked at it. Not really looked. I tilt it under the reading lamp. The surface is plain. No engraving, no design, just the warm, slightly tarnished gold of something old and well-loved. But along the edge, where the two halves of the locket meet, there's something I've always dismissed as a scratch. A faint line, barely visible, running along the lower seam. I press my thumbnail against it. It doesn't move. I press harder, slide my nail along the groove. A soft click. The locket splits. Not along the hinge I've always used to open it, the one that reveals the tiny photograph of my parents on their wedding day, but along a second, hidden seam that opens the back panel like a secret drawer. Inside is a chip. Not jewelry, not sentimental. A data chip. Tiny, black, no larger than my smallest fingernail, nestled into a precisely milled cavity in the gold. I stare at it. My father hid encrypted data inside the locket he gave me on his deathbed. Keep this close, Eleonora. Closer than anything. He wasn't being sentimental. He was being strategic. And I've been carrying the proof of his destruction around my neck for 2 years without knowing it. 3:14 p.m. Callum arrives unannounced, which means he's scared. My brother doesn't drop by. He calls first, texts twice, confirms 3 times. The anxious choreography of a young man who has spent 8 months being terrified that every unexpected knock is someone coming to collect. When he shows up without warning, it means the choreography has broken down. He's standing on the front porch of the estate, hands stuffed in his jacket pockets, his breath clouding in the cold air. He looks thin, thinner than last month. The shadows under his eyes have deepened from purple to something approaching black. Cal, I open the door wider. What's wrong? He steps inside, eyes scanning the foyer with the quick, nervous movements of someone cataloging exits. They've been asking about you. Who? The people I owe. The lenders, he swallows. They called yesterday, not about the money. Sutton handled that, the debt's cleared. But they were asking questions. About you, about Dad, about whether Dad left you anything when he died. The world tilts. What did you tell them? Nothing. I said Dad left us nothing but debt, which is what I thought was true. He meets my eyes. Is it true, Ellie? I think about the chip in the locket. The letters hidden in a box labeled correspondence. The careful, desperate handwriting of a man who knew he was running out of time. Yes, I say, he left us nothing. The lie tastes like copper. Callum searches my face. He's not stupid, reckless, yes, impulsive, prone to the kind of decisions that require his older sister to sell her future to save his present. But not stupid. He knows when I'm lying. He's known since we were children, since I used to tell him the radiator noises were friendly ghosts, and the shouting downstairs was just Mom and Dad playing a game. He doesn't push. Ellie, he says instead, quieter now, I'm sorry. About all of this, about Sutton, about everything. I know. Do you? Because I think about it every day. That you're here, in this house, married to a man you don't. He stops. Recalibrates. I think about the fact that you did this for me, and I can't ever undo it. Callum? No, let me say this. His voice cracks, just barely, the sound of something young and fragile beneath the bravado. You've been taking care of me since Dad died. Since before that. Since Mom left. You've been holding everything together, and God, Ellie, I've been such a weight. You're not a weight, you're my brother. Same thing, apparently. The silence between us is heavy with everything we can't say. The debt. The marriage. The months of fear and shame, and the slow, grinding erosion of a family that was supposed to be better than this. I pull him into a hug. He resists for a second, the instinct of a man who thinks he doesn't deserve comfort, then collapses into it. His arms wrap around me, too tight, and I feel his chest shudder with the effort of not crying. It's going to be okay, I say. I don't know if it's true, but it's what a sister says. 9:47 p.m. After Callum leaves, I find something unexpected. A book. It's sitting on the hallway table outside my bedroom, a hardcover, its dust jacket showing a watercolor of the New England coast. The Shipwright's Daughter, Maritime Families of the Massachusetts Coast, 1780 to 1920. I pick it up, flip to the first page. No inscription, no note, no GS in precise handwriting. But I know it wasn't here this morning. I walk to the kitchen. The counter has been wiped clean. Someone's been here recently. And next to the coffee machine, a tin I don't recognize. I open it. Loose leaf Earl Grey. My favorite. The specific brand I used to buy at the specialty shop on Charles Street, the one that closed 6 months ago. He found it somewhere. He didn't say a word. I stand in the kitchen holding the tin of tea, and I think about the man who accused me of being a spy and then went out and found my favorite tea from a shop that no longer exists. I think about the newspaper he folds to the financial section now, not the art section, not the nothing of before, but the section he knows I read, because I told him my father taught me to track markets before I could ride a bicycle. I think about the book on the hallway table, a book about maritime families, a book about the history I come from, left without comment, without expectation, without even the pretense of a gesture. This is how Griffith Sutton says the things he can't say. Not with words. Never with words. With tea, with books, with a newspaper folded to the right page. With the small, quiet architecture of attention that he would deny if anyone ever pointed it out, because admitting you care about someone is the most dangerous thing a man like him can do. I touch the locket. The chip is still inside, hidden, waiting. My father left me the proof of his destruction, and I'm living in the house of the man who bought his ruins. Somewhere in the data on this chip is a truth that could change everything. For Sutton, for me, for the invisible enemy that turned my father's company to ash, and is now, I suspect, doing the same to Sutton's. I should tell him. I should walk to his study, knock on the door, hand him the chip and the letters, and say, I think the thing that's destroying you is the same thing that destroyed my father. But I think about the last time I stood in that study, the accusation in his green eyes, the word enemy hanging in the air like something with teeth. He's not ready, not yet. And I need to be sure of what the chip contains, sure that my father's suspicions were real and not the paranoid scribblings of a dying man, sure that bringing this to Sutton won't confirm every fear he has about me, that I was hiding something all along, that the locket was a weapon, that his wife was carrying a bomb around her neck from the first day. I need him to trust me first. And trust, with Griffith Sutton, is not a gift, it's a siege. A slow, patient campaign, waged in kitchens and hallways, and the quiet spaces between the things he can't say and the things I won't. I close the locket. I put on the kettle. And I wait. Chapter 6. The Man Who Burned. Griffith Sutton. Rowan's report is 37 pages long. I read it in 11 minutes. Eleonora Charlotte Voss. Born March 9th, Brigham and Women's Hospital. Raised on Beacon Hill. Buckingham Brown and Nichols for secondary education. Boston University. Double major in economics and art history. Summa cum laude. Brief stint at a maritime consulting firm before her father's death collapsed the family structure, and she became the de facto custodian of a bankrupt empire and a reckless brother. No offshore accounts, no hidden trusts, no shell companies, no secondary phones, no encrypted communications, no connections to Calder strategic partners, to any intelligence firm, to any entity even tangentially related to the people systematically dismantling my life. Her credit card history reads like a chronicle of quiet sacrifice: groceries, utilities, Callum's phone bill, a monthly payment to a storage unit holding what remains of the Voss estate, and, until 8 months ago, recurring transfers to a private lending group that charged interest rates that should be criminal. She's been paying her brother's debt with money she didn't have for months before I ever entered the picture. The report is clean. Not clean in the way that suggests someone scrubbed it. Clean in the way that a life is clean when it contains nothing but work and worry and the slow, meticulous business of surviving. I set the report down on my desk and stare at it. 37 pages of a woman's life reduced to data points, and every single one of them tells the same story. Eleanora Voss is exactly what she appears to be. A woman who traded herself for her brother. A woman who reads dead men's paperwork because she misses her father. A woman who sits in kitchens at 2 a.m. with a man she should despise and stays. Just stays. Sometimes people are exactly what they appear to be. Rowan said that. And I didn't listen. Because listening would have meant trusting, and trusting would have meant admitting that the wall I've built around myself, the one made of surveillance cameras and background checks and the relentless, grinding machinery of suspicion, isn't protecting me. It's imprisoning me. I press my palms flat on the desk and close my eyes. The confrontation in the study plays behind my eyelids. Her face. Not hurt. That would have been manageable. I know how to handle hurt. I've caused enough of it to recognize the shape. What she gave me was worse. Clarity. Fear dressed up as intelligence is still just fear. She's right. The knowledge sits in my chest like a stone, heavy and immovable and shamefully, achingly obvious now that I see it. I've been so consumed with looking for the betrayal that I've become the betrayer. Not of secrets or allegiances, but of something more fundamental, the basic human contract that says, when someone shows you who they are, you believe them. She showed me. Every day, in every gesture, in every quiet moment of composure that I mistook for concealment, she showed me exactly who she is. And I looked for the lie in it. Because the lie would have been safer. Because if she was a threat, I could neutralize her, categorize her, file her away. But if she's honest, if she's real, then I have no excuse for the distance, no justification for the cameras, no operational rationale for the cold, surgical loneliness I've carved into the architecture of my life. If she's real, then I've been alone for no reason. And that's the thing that could break me. My phone buzzes. Rowan Kessler, security anomaly, perimeter sensor triggered at the estate. Northeast quadrant, near the service road, could be wildlife. Sending a team to check. I stare at the message. The northeast quadrant is adjacent to the east wing. Eleanora's wing. I'm in the car before I've finished reading. 10:47 p.m. The Sutton Estate. The drive from downtown Boston to Manchester by the Sea takes 43 minutes at normal speed. I make it in 26. Rowan's team is already on site when I arrive. 2 SUVs parked at angles near the service entrance, floodlights cutting white channels through the dark. The estate is lit up like a crime scene, and the sight of it, my house, her house, blazing with the cold light of emergency, sends something through my chest that I refuse to name. Rowan meets me at the door. What happened? Perimeter breach, northeast fence, near the old gardener's gate. Someone cut the sensor wire. Clean cut. Professional. They were on the property for approximately 7 minutes, before the backup system flagged the gap. Inside the house? No, they didn't make it past the exterior. Bennett caught movement on the secondary cameras at the tree line and scrambled the response. By the time we got there, they were gone. They. At least two. Based on the footprint analysis, we're looking at trained operatives, not amateurs. Someone who knew the layout well enough to target the weakest point in the perimeter. I processed this. 2 trained operatives, professional equipment, knowledge of the estate's security architecture. The northeast quadrant. I say, they were heading for the east wing. Rowan nods. His face is grim. Not my office, not the server room, not the vault. I meet his eyes. They were heading for Eleonora. That's my assessment. The world narrows. For 18 months, I've been the target. Every betrayal, every turned operative, every leak and breach and dismantled alliance, all aimed at me, at my company. At the Empire, I built on the ruins of my father's grief. This is different. This is her. Where is she? Her room. She doesn't know what happened. The response was contained to the exterior. Good. Keep it that way until I've talked to her. I move toward the house. Rowan catches my arm. Griff. His voice is quiet, careful. This changes things. If Calder, or whoever's behind this, is targeting Eleonora directly, it's not just about leverage. They want something from her specifically. I think of the locket. Margot Calder's ice-blue eyes tracking it across a ballroom. The questions about Harlan Voss. I know, I say. What are you going to do? The question is simple. The answer should be simple. Increase security, tighten the perimeter, add more cameras, more guards, more layers of technology between my wife and whoever wants to reach her. But that's not what Rowan is asking. He's asking whether I'm going to keep treating her like a variable, or whether I'm going to walk into that room and be honest. Something I should have done weeks ago, I say. I go inside. The house is quiet. The kind of quiet that settles over a space when something has happened just outside its walls and the walls have held but you can still feel the pressure. I climb the stairs to the east wing. The hallway is dark except for the thin line of light beneath her door. She's awake. Of course, she's awake. Eleonora Voss doesn't sleep when the world is unsettled. She sits up and reads and touches the locket at her throat and waits for the thing she can't name to reveal itself. I knock. 3 seconds of silence. Come in. I open the door. She's sitting in the armchair by the window, a book in her lap, closed, not open, which means she was listening, not reading. She's wearing the oversized sweater and her hair is down, dark against the pale cashmere, and the locket gleams at her throat. She looks at me. And in that look, in the slight widening of her eyes, the quick scan of my face for information, the way her hand tightens almost imperceptibly on the arm of the chair, I see something I missed in the study. Something I was too blinded by my own fear to recognize. She's not afraid of me. She's afraid for me. Something happened, she says. Not a question. There was a security breach. Someone tried to access the grounds near your wing. They didn't get in. The team handled it. She absorbs this. Her face doesn't change. The composure holds, the Beacon Hill training doing what it was designed to do. But her hand moves to the locket. The reflex. Were they after you? She asks. No. The word hangs. They were after me, she says. Yes. A beat. 2. 3. Do you know why? I should tell her about Calder, about the influence operation, about the 18 months of coordinated betrayal that I now believe connects to whatever destroyed her father's company. I should tell her that the locket she's touching might hold the key to everything. But I don't know that yet, not for certain. And I've spent too long weaponizing uncertainty against the people around me to do it again. Not tonight, not to her. Not yet, I say, but I'm going to find out. She nods, slowly, processing. Are we safe, tonight? The perimeter is secured. Rowan has a full team on site. No one's getting in. She nods again. Then, softer, "You drove here." "Yes." "From the office." "Yes." "It's almost 11. "I know." She studies me. Those gray eyes. The ones that see too much, that cut through every mask I've ever worn. Take in the creased suit, the loosened tie, the slightly wild look I'm sure I'm wearing because I drove 90 miles an hour through the dark toward a woman I've spent 6 weeks trying not to care about. "You're staying," she says. It's not a question. Yes. I don't go to my wing. I don't retreat to the study or the office or any of the spaces I've designated as mine. The controlled zones where emotion is prohibited and vulnerability is a tactical error. Instead, I sit down. On the floor. Back against the wall beside her door, legs stretched in front of me. The gun I've carried since the betrayal started, a compact Sig Sauer that lives in the holster beneath my jacket like a second conscience, rests in my lap. She watches me from the chair. "You're sitting on the floor." "Yes. There are chairs. I'm aware." Griffith. "I'm staying here tonight," I say, "in this hallway, outside your door. You can sleep or read or do whatever you need to do, but I'm not leaving." The silence that follows is different from any silence we've shared before. Not the cold silence of distance, not the charged silence of confrontation, not even the fragile silence of the kitchen at 2 a.m. This is something else. This is the silence of a man who has run out of walls. She doesn't argue, doesn't tell me I'm being dramatic or unnecessary, or that she can take care of herself. All things she could say, all things that would be true. She just looks at me. "Okay," she says. She picks up her book, opens it, starts to read, and I sit. Hours pass. The house settles around us. The old building's creaks and groans, the distant murmur of the ocean, the occasional muffled voice from Rowan's team checking the perimeter. The hallway is dark except for the light spilling through her doorway, casting a warm rectangle across the hardwood that stops just short of my feet. She reads. I watch the door, the windows, the shadows that pool at the end of the corridor where the hallway turns toward the staircase. At some point, midnight, maybe later, I hear the book close. Soft footsteps. The door opens wider, and she's standing above me, silhouetted in lamplight. She's holding a blanket. She drapes it over my legs without a word. Her fingers brush my shoulder as she adjusts the fabric. A touch so light it could be accidental. It isn't. "Thank you," she whispers. I look up at her. The light behind her turns her hair to a dark halo, and the locket catches the glow, and she is standing above me with a blanket and bare feet, and the kind of quiet courage that doesn't need to announce itself, the most real thing I've seen in 18 months. "Go to sleep," I say. My voice is rougher than I intend it to be. She goes back to the chair, curls into it. At some point, her breathing slows and evens out, and I know she's sleeping. I don't sleep. I sit with the gun in my lap and the blanket over my legs and the sound of her breathing in the room behind me, and I keep watch. Not because it's strategic. Not because it's contractual. Because she is in this house, in this world, in this life, and someone tried to reach her tonight, and every fiber of my being has rearranged itself around a single, blinding, terrifying certainty. I will not let them. Not her. Not this. I will burn down everything I've built before I let anyone touch her. The thought should frighten me. It does frighten me. The intensity of it. The absoluteness. The way it obliterates every rule I've set for myself about distance and control, and the deadly mathematics of emotional attachment. But it's also the truest thing I've felt since the day my father died on a pier in Southie, and the world went quiet. At some point before dawn, while the sky outside the window shifts from black to the bruised gray of a February morning, she stirs. Her eyes open, find me through the doorway. I'm still here. I haven't moved. You stayed, she says. Her voice is sleep rough, barely a whisper. Yes. All night. Yes. She looks at me, really looks, the way she did at the courthouse, the way she does when she's deciding whether something is real. And I see the moment it lands. The understanding. Not of what I did, but of what it means. A man who trusts no one, who has spent 18 months watching the people he loves turn into strangers, sat on a hardwood floor all night with a gun in his lap because a woman he married for port access was sleeping 20 feet away. That's not strategy. That's not a controlled variable. That's something else entirely. You didn't have to stay, she says. I hold her gaze. Yes, I say, I did. The words are the most honest thing I've said in years. She doesn't smile, doesn't cry, doesn't offer any of the reactions I've cataloged and anticipated and prepared for. She just looks at me with those quiet gray eyes and nods, as if she always knew, as if she was just waiting for me to catch up. Chapter 7. The Truth Beneath. Eleonora Voss Sutton. I carry the chip in my closed fist for 27 steps. I counted. From my bedroom, down the hallway, past the painting of the Manchester coastline that has hung in this house since before Sutton rebuilt it, to the door of his study. 27 steps, the length of a decision that took me 3 days to make. It's Tuesday evening. The house smells like the rosemary I planted in the kitchen window box last week. One small, defiant act of habitation in a space I'm still learning to call anything other than his. Outside, the ocean is a flat gray line against a grayer sky, and the February light is dying the slow, reluctant death it always dies in New England, as if the sun can't quite bring itself to abandon the coast. The study door is ajar. Light spills through the gap. Warm amber. The desk lamp he leaves on, even when he isn't working, because he told me once, in the kitchen at midnight, that he doesn't like rooms to go completely dark. He didn't explain why. He didn't need to. I push the door open. He's at the desk, sleeves rolled, tie gone. The report, the one I know, is about me, because Rowan Kessler is discreet, but he's not invisible, and 37 pages doesn't fit in a standard folder without the edges showing, sits closed beneath a stack of files, as if he's trying to bury it. He looks up. The green eyes, the careful, assessing gaze that used to feel like a blade and now feels like something else, something closer to attention, close to care. Eleonora, my name, not Voss, not Mrs. Sutton. He's been using my name since the night he sat on the floor outside my room, and every time he says it, the syllables carry a weight that wasn't there before, as if he's learning the shape of it, as if it matters. I need to show you something, I say. I cross the room, set the chip on the desk between us. It sits on the dark wood like a period at the end of a sentence. Tiny, black, definitive. He looks at it, then at me. What is this? The thing my father hid in my locket before he died. Silence. I watch him process. The eyes narrow. The jaw tightens. The body goes still. That particular stillness of a man whose brain is running at full capacity while his exterior reveals nothing. Your locket, he says. There's a hidden compartment, a second seam along the back panel. I found it 4 days ago. I pause. Along with letters my father wrote before his death. He believed his company's collapse was engineered, sabotaged. He found evidence, had it encrypted, and hid the chip inside the locket he gave me. Another beat of silence. You've known for 4 days, he says. Yes. And you're telling me now? Yes. The question he doesn't ask fills the room. Why now? The answer is the night he spent on the floor, the blanket, the gun in his lap, and the green eyes watching the door until dawn. The way he said yes I did when I told him he didn't have to stay. That's why. Because a man who sits on a hardwood floor all night to guard a woman he married for port access is not a man who will weaponize the truth she gives him. I didn't tell you sooner, I say, because I needed to know that when I put this in your hands, you wouldn't use it as proof that I was hiding something, that you wouldn't look at this chip and see confirmation that your wife was a threat all along. His face changes. Not a flinch, something deeper. A rearrangement of the features, as if something behind his eyes has shifted and the rest of his face is catching up. I would have, he says quietly, a week ago. I would have. I know. And now? I hold his gaze. Now you tell me. Griffith Sutton. She stands across from me with her hands empty and her eyes steady, and offers me the most dangerous thing anyone has given me in 18 months. Trust. Not the contractual kind, not the strategic kind, not the kind that comes with terms and conditions and escape clauses written in fine print. The real kind. The kind that says, here is my father's secret. Here is the thing I've been carrying since before I knew you existed. I'm putting it in your hands because I believe, despite everything you've done, despite the cameras and the accusations and the word enemy you threw at me in this very room, that you will do the right thing with it. The chip sits on the desk. I stare at it. Your father believed his company was sabotaged, I say. Yes. His letters describe the same pattern you've been experiencing. Contracts that collapsed. Allies who turned. Failures that appeared random but, when mapped together, formed a coordinated operation. The words hit like a controlled detonation. I've been so focused on my own siege, the 13 names, the turned operatives, the systematic dismantling of Sutton Meridian, that I never considered the possibility that it didn't start with me. It started with Harland Voss. He went to a data security firm, I say, Aegis Vault in Newport. Rowan found the credit card records. 3 visits in the 18 months before his death. Her eyes widen slightly. You already knew? I knew he was encrypting something. I didn't know what. She looks at the chip, then at me. Now you do. I pick it up. It's lighter than I expected. Impossibly light for something that might contain the answer to 18 months of darkness. I'll have my tech team decrypt it, I say. Rowan's people have the capability. It may take time. If your father used Aegis Vault, the encryption will be serious. My father was a careful man. I'm beginning to understand that. A pause. She's watching me with an expression I haven't seen before, or maybe I have, and I was too blind to recognize it. It's not wariness, not composure, not the rigid, polished mask of a woman trained to show nothing. It's hope, quiet, cautious, the kind of hope that has been disappointed too many times to announce itself but persists anyway, like a green thing growing through concrete. Eleonora. Yes. I owe you an apology. The words feel like swallowing glass, not because they're untrue, because they're overdue. Because I've owed them since the night I stood in this study and called her an enemy, and every day I didn't say them was another brick in the wall between us. I suspected you, I say. From the first day, I watched you on cameras, I timed your movements, I had Rowan investigate your background, twice. I interrogated your motives, questioned your presence in this house, and treated every moment of kindness you showed me as potential evidence of deception. She doesn't speak, just listens. You were right, I continue. In the study, when you called me a coward, it was fear, all of it. Not strategy, not intelligence. Fear. I was so convinced that everyone I let close would betray me that I couldn't see the one person who was doing the opposite. The opposite of betrayal? Yes. What is the opposite of betrayal? I think about it. Not the quick, analytical thinking I use for operations and threat assessments. The slow kind. The honest kind. Showing up, I say. The kitchen at 2 a.m. The bread you bake. The way you sat across from me and asked if I was all right and meant it. I pause. The way you gave me 4 more days than I deserved before bringing me this chip, because you wanted to be sure I'd earned it. Her eyes are bright. Not with tears. She doesn't cry, this woman. She transmutes grief into composure and pain into precision, the way some people transmute coal into diamonds, but with something that makes my chest contract. You suspected me of being one of them, she says, one of the people who turned. Yes. And now? Now I know you're not. How? The question is simple. The answer is not. Because the answer has nothing to do with reports or data or 37 pages of intelligence that proved she was clean. The evidence was always there. I just refused to see it. Because you stayed, I say, when you had every reason to leave. When I gave you every reason to leave, you stayed. And not because of the contract. Not because of your brother. Because you chose to. She's quiet for a long moment. That's what trust is, Sutton. Not certainty, not evidence. Just the decision to believe someone, even when you can't prove they deserve it. I hear the echo, my own words, from a conversation we haven't had yet, from a future I'm only now beginning to believe might exist. How do I know you won't suspect me again, she asks. The question is the same one she asked in the study, the night of the confrontation, but the tone is different now. Softer. Not a challenge. A genuine question from a woman who has given me her father's secret and wants to know if the ground she's standing on will hold. The Voss operation started 5 years ago. Yours started 18 months ago, shortly after you acquired the Voss assets. I stare at the map. 5 years. Margot has been building this for 5 years. She destroyed Harlan Voss's company, waited for someone to acquire the wreckage, and then turned the same weapon on the buyer. On me. There's more, Rowan says. The data shows that Calder's operation was specifically designed to avoid proximity to Eleonora. What do you mean? The influence campaigns targeted people around you, and before that, around Harlan Voss. But anyone who spent significant time in close proximity to Eleonora was excluded from the operation. Not coincidence, deliberately. The communication logs show explicit instructions to avoid contact with Eleonora Voss and anyone in her immediate orbit. Because she was carrying the chip. Because Calder knew, or suspected, that Harlan hid the evidence somewhere, his daughter could reach it. If anyone got close enough to Eleonora for long enough, they might discover the chip. So Calder kept people away, manipulated the social environment to ensure Eleonora remained isolated. The implications cascade. The reason no one close to Eleonora ever betrayed me wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. It was because Calder's operation was designed to maintain a perimeter around the one person who could expose it. Eleonora wasn't just clean. She was the key. The key Calder had been circling for years, unable to reach, unable to neutralize, because the woman wearing the evidence around her neck didn't even know what she was carrying. Until now. I close the folder. Prepare everything, I say. Financial records, communications, the full operational map. I want it formatted for federal submission and ready by Friday. You're taking it to the authorities? I'm taking it to everyone. The FBI, the intelligence community, our federal clients. By the time I'm done, Margot Calder won't have a firm, a reputation, or a single asset that isn't frozen. Rowan nods. Then, quieter. What about Eleonora? What about her? She gave you this. Without it, we'd still be in the dark. She deserves to know what it contained. He's right. I find her in the kitchen. She's at the island, reading the newspaper, folded to the financial section, the one I've been leaving for her, with a cup of Earl Grey in her hands. She looks up when I enter. It's Calder, I say. Everything traces back to Margot Calder. She destroyed your father's company. Then she turned the same operation on me. She sets down the cup. Her face is very still. And the chip? Contains the complete blueprint. Financial records, communications, the entire architecture of the operation. Your father mapped it all before he died. Silence. The kind that fills a room the way water fills a vessel. Completely, pressing against every surface. He knew, she says. He knew what was happening to him, and he couldn't stop it, but he made sure someone could. He made sure you could. Her hand goes to the locket. Empty now. The chip is in Rowan's secure lab, but she touches it anyway. The reflex, the connection. I told you the truth, she says, about everything, from the beginning. I know. And you looked for the lie. I know. And you didn't find one? No. She looks at me across the kitchen island, the same granite surface where we ate soup and washed dishes and had a conversation that changed the axis of my world, and something passes between us that I don't have a word for. It's not forgiveness. That's too simple. It's not absolution. That's too religious. It's recognition. The quiet, devastating acknowledgement of two people who have been fighting the same war from different sides and have finally found each other in the middle. What happens now? She asks. Now I dismantle her, completely, surgically, with the evidence your father gave you and the resources I have to deploy it. And us? The question is small, almost fragile, and from a woman who is neither small nor fragile, it carries the weight of everything she's risked by asking it. Us, I repeat. Is there an us, or is this still an arrangement? I look at her, the dark hair, the gray eyes, the locket at her throat, empty now, but still worn, because it was her father's, and she loves the ghost of him the same way I love the ghost of mine. There's an us, I say. There's been an us since you sat in my kitchen at 2 a.m. and didn't try to fix me. Her lips part. Just barely. The composure holds. It always holds. But behind it, I see the thing she's been hiding since the first day. Not a secret, not a scheme. Hope. Okay, she says. One word, quiet as a heartbeat. It's enough. Chapter 8. The Reckoning. Griffith Sutton. I dismantle Margot Calder on a Friday. Not with bullets. Not with threats. Not with the blunt instruments of the world she thinks we share. I do it the way my father would have wanted, with precision, with patience, and with the quiet, devastating thoroughness of a man who has finally found the enemy and has no intention of leaving anything standing. The package goes to the FBI at 9 a.m. 36 pages of financial documentation, communication intercepts, shell company registrations, and the complete operational blueprint of an influence campaign that spanned 5 years, 2 companies, and 14 human beings who were turned into weapons against their own loyalty. At 10 a.m., a second package goes to the Department of Defense because 7 of the clients Calder compromised through Sutton Meridian hold federal security contracts, and the Pentagon does not take kindly to learning that a private intelligence firm has been systematically undermining the people tasked with protecting national assets. At 11 a.m., Rowan delivers a third package to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, the shell companies, the offshore accounts, the wire transfers that loop through Cyprus and Luxembourg, and the Caymans, the money trail that connects Margot Calder to the destruction of Voss Shipping and the attempted destruction of Sutton Meridian. By noon, Calder Strategic Partners' bank accounts are frozen. By 2 p.m., the FBI has executed search warrants on Calder's offices in Boston and New York. By 4 p.m., the intelligence community has blacklisted her firm from every federal contract, every classified briefing, every private sector partnership that requires a security clearance. I watch it happen from my office. Not with satisfaction. Satisfaction implies pleasure, and there is no pleasure in watching a woman who was once brilliant and principled burn down the empire she built with stolen fire. There is only the grim, necessary completion of a thing that needed to be done. Rowan sits across from me, tracking the reports as they come in. Calder's lawyers are requesting a meeting, he says. She wants to negotiate. No. She's offering full cooperation in exchange for no. Rowan nods. He didn't expect a different answer. At 6:14 p.m., my phone rings. Private number, I answer. Griffith. Margot Calder's voice is controlled. Steady. Even now, even with the walls collapsing around her, she sounds like a woman chairing a board meeting, not a woman watching her life disintegrate. I almost admire it. Almost. Margot, I assume you're enjoying this. I'm not, but I am finishing it. A pause. You know this doesn't end anything. The people I turned, they're still damaged. The trust you lost, it doesn't come back because you found the source. Maybe not, But at least now I know the damage wasn't mine. Wasn't it? Her voice sharpens. The controlled exterior cracks, just slightly. And beneath it, I hear something old and bitter and deeply personal. You exposed my operation in Kandahar 12 years ago. You cost me everything. My career, my reputation, my standing in a community I'd given my life to. You think I forgot that? I think you turned a professional setback into a personal vendetta and destroyed innocent people to settle it. I think you ruined a man who had nothing to do with our history and killed him for the crime of building something you wanted. Harlan Voss was collateral. Harlan Voss was a father. Silence. And his daughter? Margot says, quieter now. The one you married for port access? Is she collateral too, Griffith? Or is she something else? I think of Nora in the kitchen this morning, making coffee with the quiet efficiency I've come to associate with the way she inhabits spaces. Fully, deliberately, as if she's planting a flag in every room she enters. I think of the chip she placed on my desk, the trust she gave me when every rational calculation said she shouldn't. She's not your concern, I say. Not anymore. Everyone turns, Griffith, everyone. You think she's different? You think she won't? Not her, I say. Not ever. I hang up. The phone goes dark. I set it on the desk and look out the window. Boston at dusk. The harbor catching the last copper light. The city beginning its slow transition from the hard, ambitious day to the softer, more uncertain night. It's over. Not all of it. There will be trials, depositions, the slow machinery of federal prosecution grinding toward whatever justice the system can deliver. Hewitt and Gallagher and the others will need to be debriefed, supported, helped to understand that what was done to them was not a failure of their character, but an exploitation of their humanity. But the source is severed. The pattern is broken. And for the first time in 18 months, I can sit in a room and not wonder which person in it will turn next. Eleonora. He comes home at 7. I know because I hear the front door, not the careful, measured entry of the man who used to drift through this house like a ghost, avoiding his own haunting, but something different, heavier, more present, the footsteps of a man who is arriving, not retreating. Monachichen, there's pasta on the stove, and bread in the oven, and a bottle of wine I opened 20 minutes ago because the day demanded it. Through the window, the ocean is a dark mirror under the first stars. He appears in the doorway. He looks. I search for the word and find it. Lighter. Not happy, exactly. Griffith Sutton doesn't do happy the way other people do, in bright, uncomplicated colors. He does it in shades, in the loosening of a jaw, in the almost imperceptible easing of the shoulders he carries like ramparts. He's done. I can see it. Whatever he did today, whatever precise surgical dismantling he executed with the evidence my father gathered and I delivered, it's finished. Is it over? I ask. Yes. One word. But he says it the way a man says something he's been waiting 18 months to say, with the quiet, shuddering relief of someone setting down a weight so heavy he'd forgotten what standing upright felt like. He crosses the kitchen, stops at the island. I'm on the other side, wine glass in hand, and the granite stretches between us the way it always has, the treaty table, the no man's land, the distance we've been measuring since the first night he sat here and drank whiskey he didn't want. Callum's debt, he says. I go still. What about it? It's resolved, completely. Not just the original amount, the secondary obligations, the interest, the informal pressures, all of it. I handled it 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks? I didn't tell you because it wasn't part of the contract. It wasn't a term or a condition or a deliverable. He pauses. It was just something I did. The words land softly. No dramatic delivery. No expectation of gratitude. Just a statement of fact from a man who paid off his wife's brother's entire debt constellation. Not because the contract required it, but because her brother matters to her, and therefore her brother matters to him. My throat tightens. Why, I ask, and I hear the crack in my own voice. Because you shouldn't have to carry that anymore. He meets my eyes. You've been carrying things for other people your entire life, Nora. Your father's legacy, your brother's mistakes, this marriage, you carry it all, and you never put anything down, because you think the moment you do, everything collapses. He pauses. I want to be the person you put things down with. I set the wine glass on the counter because my hands are not steady enough to hold it. Sutton. Griffith, he corrects, quietly, without demand. Just an offering. His first name, given freely, as if he's finally ready to be that person rather than the fortress he's built around him. Griffith. He reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out a document. I recognize it immediately. The cream paper, the dense legal text, the signatures at the bottom. Our marriage contract. 3 years of my life, quantified and codified and reduced to clauses and conditions. He holds it with both hands. Then he tears it in half. The sound is small, precise. The tearing of paper shouldn't carry weight, but this does. The weight of every assumption it contained, every boundary it enforced, every night I spent in this house, knowing I was here because of ink on a page, rather than anything resembling choice. He tears it again, and again. The pieces fall to the counter like confetti at a funeral. This was never us, he says. I don't want a contract. I don't want terms or conditions or exit clauses. I want you to stay because you want to. And if you don't want to... He stops. The words cost him. I can see the price in the tension of his jaw, the way his hands flatten against the counter as if bracing for impact. If you don't want to, then you're free. Right now, the debts are paid, Callum is safe. You have no obligation to... Griffith. He stops. I'm staying. The silence that follows is the loudest thing I've ever heard. He looks at me, green eyes, unguarded for the first time since I've known him. Not the careful assessment of a man running calculations. Not the flat, controlled stare of someone who has sealed every window in the room. Open. Terrified. Hopeful. Not because of the contract, I say. Not because of Callum. Not because I have nowhere else to go. I come around the island. Close the distance. The granite is behind me now, and there is nothing between us but air and the accumulated weight of everything we've been too careful to say. Because I want to be here. Because somewhere between the surveillance cameras and the midnight kitchens and the night you sat on my floor with a gun in your lap, I stopped performing and started choosing. And I choose this. I choose you. You're sure, he says. Not a question, a plea. I'm sure. He reaches for me. His hand cups the side of my face. Tentative, careful, as if I'm something that might shatter if he applies too much pressure. His palm is warm. His thumb traces the line of my cheekbone with the focused attention he gives everything, but softened now, slowed down, stripped of the clinical precision that usually governs his touch. This is not strategy. This is a man touching a woman's face for the first time and discovering that the architecture of his entire world has rearranged itself around the curve of her jaw. Nora, he says. Yes. I'm going to kiss you. I know. If you don't want... Griffith, stop talking. He kisses me. It is not gentle. It is not careful. It is not the measured, calculated contact of a man who has planned every variable and anticipated every outcome. It is desperate, raw. The kiss of a man who has been holding himself back with every ounce of discipline he possesses and has finally, irrevocably, catastrophically let go. His hands are in my hair, on my waist, pulling me against him with a ferocity that steals the air from my lungs. His mouth moves over mine like he's learning a language he's been denied his entire life. Hungry, urgent, aching with the accumulated weight of every silence and every distance and every night he stood outside my door and said nothing. I kiss him back. with everything I have. With the fury of the woman who called him a coward, and the softness of the woman who brought him a blanket, and the quiet, unshakable certainty of the woman who sat in his kitchen at 2 a.m. and stayed. We break apart, breathing hard, his forehead pressed against mine, his hands trembling where they cradle my face. That, he says, voice wrecked, was not in the contract. I laugh. The sound surprises both of us. Bright and broken and real, echoing off the kitchen walls, filling the space where silence used to live. Good, I say. I never liked the contract. He pulls me close again, not for a kiss this time, just to hold me. His arms wrap around my waist. His chin rests on the top of my head, and I press my ear against his chest and listen to his heartbeat. Steady, strong, a little too fast. Like a man who has just discovered that the world contains things worth racing toward rather than running from. I should tell you something, he murmurs into my hair. What? The tea. The Earl Grey. I didn't just find it somewhere. I tracked down the supplier for the shop on Charles Street, convinced them to sell me a case, and had it shipped from a warehouse in Vermont. I pull back, look at him. You tracked down a tea supplier. It seemed important. Griffith Sutton, head of the largest private intelligence firm on the eastern seaboard, used his resources to acquire discontinued Earl Grey. I've used them for worse things. I stare at him. This man. This impossible, infuriating surveillance camera installing, tea hunting, floor sleeping, contract tearing man. I love you, I say. The words leave my mouth without permission, without strategy. Without the careful vetting process I apply to everything I say in this house, in this life, in this marriage, that stopped being an arrangement somewhere around the third midnight kitchen and the first torn newspaper. His arms tighten around me. Say that again, he says. I love you. Again. I love you, Griffith. He exhales, long, shaking. The exhale of a man releasing something he's been holding so long his lungs have forgotten the shape of empty. I love you too, he says. I have loved you since the courthouse, when you looked at me and refused to blink. I have loved you since the kitchen, when you asked if I was all right and meant it. I have loved you since every morning I left your newspaper on the counter, and every night I watched you read in the library, and every second of every day that I told myself I didn't. You're a terrible liar, I whisper. You've mentioned that. For a man in the intelligence business, I'm aware of the irony. I kiss him again. Softer this time, slower. The kiss of two people who have time now, who have chosen each other not for 3 years or for a contract or for the desperate calculus of survival, but for the simple, terrifying, extraordinary reason that they want to. Outside, the ocean murmurs against the shore. The bread is burning in the oven. Neither of us moves. Epilogue. The Garden After Rain. Eleonora Sutton. 6 months later. The garden was my idea. Griffith didn't understand it at first. He stood on the back lawn of the Manchester estate in April, watching me unload 40 pounds of soil and a flat of seedlings from the trunk of a car I'd bought with my own money. A used Volvo, dark green, with a scratch on the passenger door and 83,000 miles on the odometer. And I could see the calculations happening behind his eyes. Why is she gardening when we have a landscaping team? Why did she buy a car when Bennett is available? Why is she kneeling in the dirt in clothes that cost nothing when there are perfectly good chairs on the patio? He didn't ask. He'd learned, by then, that I do things for reasons he won't always understand immediately, and that the not understanding is part of the architecture of trust. You don't demand blueprints from someone you believe in. You just watch and wait, and eventually the shape of the thing reveals itself. The garden revealed itself in June. Tomatoes, basil, rosemary, lavender along the stone border, climbing roses on the trellis I built from lumber I bought at the hardware store in town, where the owner, a man named Ed, who has lived in Manchester by the Sea for 62 years, now knows me by name and saves the good cedar for me without being asked. It's September now. The tomatoes are heavy on the vine, red and sun-warm, the kind of tomatoes you can only get when someone plants them with their own hands and weights. The rosemary has gone wild, spilling over the border in fragrant green cascades that smell like Sunday mornings, and the bread I still bake every week. The roses are holding their last blooms, stubborn and beautiful, refusing to concede to the first hints of autumn in the salt air. I'm kneeling in the dirt when I hear him, not his footsteps. I've learned in 6 months of real marriage that Griffith Sutton moves through his own house like a man still surprised to find it inhabited. He doesn't announce himself. He just appears. What I hear is the coffee mug. His mug, the one with the chipped handle that belonged to his father, set down on the stone wall beside me with the particular ceramic on granite click that means he's brought me something and doesn't want to interrupt. I look up. He's standing at the edge of the garden in his running clothes. Gray t-shirt, dark shorts, sneakers that have actually been used for running rather than displayed as a theoretical commitment to exercise. His hair is damp. His face is flushed. He went out at 6 this morning, the way he does most mornings now, because somewhere in the past 3 months, Griffith Sutton discovered that running along the coast at dawn makes him feel something he can't get from surveillance screens or intelligence briefings. He calls it clearing his head. I call it peace. He won't use that word yet, but he'll get there. You're up early, he says. The tomatoes don't care what time it is. The tomatoes are inanimate. The tomatoes are thriving, which is more than I can say for your ability to make small talk before 7 a.m. The corner of his mouth twitches. Not a smile. Griffith Sutton doesn't smile before his second cup of coffee, and even then it's more of a controlled relaxation of the jaw. But close. Closer than it used to be. He sits on the stone wall, picks up his mug, watches me work. This is our morning. This is what we've built. Not the empire, or the contracts, or the intelligence apparatus that still runs from the downtown office where Rowan holds the operational center with the competence of a man who was born to stand between his boss and the world. Not the legal proceedings against Margot Calder, which grind forward with the slow, meticulous patience of federal prosecution and will, eventually, result in the kind of justice that my father never lived to see. This. Dirt under my fingernails, coffee on the wall, the ocean murmuring its indifferent, eternal commentary beyond the seawall, and a man who used to watch me through cameras now watching me in person, in daylight, with eyes that have learned to look without calculating. Callum called, he says. When? Last night, while you were asleep, he wanted to confirm Sunday. Sunday, dinner, a thing that happens now, weekly, reliably, with the comfortable rhythm of a tradition that established itself without anyone formally deciding it should exist. Callum drives up from Boston. Rowan comes, sometimes, when the work allows. They sit at the kitchen island, never the formal dining room, always the island, because the island is where real things happen in this house. And they eat whatever I've cooked, and drink whatever Griffith has opened, and talk about things that aren't operations, or debts, or the architecture of old wounds. Callum calls Griffith the warden. Griffith pretends to hate it. He doesn't hate it. He's bringing someone, Griffith adds. I look up from the basil. Someone. A woman. He was evasive about details, which means it's either serious or catastrophic. With Callum, those are often the same thing. I'm aware. I smile. He almost smiles back. This is us. This is the language we've developed. Not the language of contracts or confrontations or the loaded silences of two people testing each other's defenses, but something quieter, warmer, the shorthand of a man and a woman who have seen the worst of each other and decided, daily, deliberately, to stay. I stand, brush the dirt from my knees. Pick up the mug he brought me, Earl Grey, the Vermont supply, which arrives in a case of 12 tins every 2 months, because Griffith set up a standing order and will not, under any circumstances, discuss the logistics of this arrangement without changing the subject. The tea is perfect. It always is. I want to show you something, I say. He follows me through the garden, past the tomatoes, and the roses, and the lavender border, to the far corner of the property where the lawn meets the seawall. There's a bench here, new, installed last month. I had it made by a carpenter in town, from reclaimed wood taken from a decommissioned fishing vessel. The grain is salt-weathered and silver, smooth to the touch, carrying the history of the water and its surface. The plaque on the backrest reads, "For Patrick and Harland, who taught us to watch the sea." Griffith goes still. He stares at the plaque. His father's name, my father's name, side by side on a bench overlooking the ocean they both loved. The longshoreman from Southie and the shipping magnate from Beacon Hill, two men who never met, but who shaped the people their children became. "Nora," he says. His voice is rough. "They would have liked each other," I say. "Your father and mine. Different worlds, but the same principle. Show up, do the work, keep your word." He sits on the bench. I sit beside him. The ocean stretches to the horizon, gray-blue September. Calm, the light catching the surface in fragments of silver that look like scattered coins. The air smells like salt and rosemary and the last warmth of a season that's beginning to turn. He takes my hand. This still surprises me. Not the gesture itself, which has become familiar, but the ease of it. 6 months ago, Griffith Sutton did not take hands. He assessed. Calculated. Maintain the precise distance that kept human contact in the category of strategy rather than need. Now he reaches for me without thinking, as if his hand knows where mine is before his brain gives permission. "I got a call from the federal prosecutor this morning," he says. "Called her?" "She's taking a plea, full cooperation in exchange for reduced sentencing. She'll give up her entire network, the operatives, the financial infrastructure, everything." I absorb this. It's really over. It's really over. I lean against his shoulder. He leans back. The bench holds both of us. The wood solid and salt strong, built from something that survived the ocean and found a new purpose on land. "I was thinking," he says. "Dangerous. About the East Wing." "What about it?" "It's too big for one person." "I haven't slept in the East Wing in 4 months, Griffith." "I know. You've been sleeping in my room, which is in the West Wing, which means the East Wing is empty, which means it could be something else." I turn my head to look at him. "Something else like what?" His jaw works. The tell. The thing he does when he's about to say something that costs him. Something that requires the dismantling of another wall he didn't know he was still maintaining. "A nursery," he says. The word sits between us like a held breath. "Not now," he adds quickly. I'm not suggesting. I mean, when you're ready, if you're ready. It's just that the room has good light, and it faces the garden, and I thought, "Griffith." He stops. "Yes." "Yes." "When I'm ready, yes." He exhales. The kind of exhale that carries the weight of a future he's only now allowing himself to imagine. A future with more than contracts and surveillance, and the cold arithmetic of managed risk. A future with morning light and small shoes, and the particular chaos of a life built, not on strategy, but on the terrifying, irrational, uncontrollable act of loving someone enough to bring another person into the world with them. He's not there yet, but he's closer than he was, and I have time. We have time. I touch the locket at my throat. It's empty now. The chip in federal custody, the secret decoded, the mystery solved. But I still wear it. For my father. For the man who hid the truth inside a piece of gold and trusted his daughter to carry it until the right moment. He was right to trust me. That's the thing I think about most. Sitting on this bench with my husband's hand in mine, and the ocean doing what it's always done. Existing, persisting, continuing, regardless of what the people on shore decide to make of their small, fierce, breakable lives. Trust is not a feeling. It's a practice. Something you do every day. Something you choose. In the morning when you leave a newspaper on the counter folded to the right page. And in the evening when you sit on a stone wall and watch someone garden without asking why. And in the midnight hours when you stay, even when staying is harder than leaving, even when the easier thing would be to retreat behind the walls you've spent your whole life building. Trust is the bread I bake on Sunday mornings. Trust is the tea he tracks down from warehouses in Vermont. Trust is a bench with two names on it, overlooking the water, holding the weight of two people who chose each other not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Griffith squeezes my hand. I squeeze back. The bread, I say. What about it? I started a new loaf this morning. Sourdough. My father's recipe. I know. I smelled it when I got back from my run. It should be ready soon. Then we should go inside. Neither of us moves. The ocean murmurs. The garden holds its breath. The September light turns everything. The bench, the roses, the man beside me, the woman I've become, to gold. We sit. We stay. And for the first time in a very long time, that is enough. The ND.